committed to education reform. There is substantial concern at the state that the state will be able to fulfill its commitments for through the year 2000 for its ed reform money. We take up the big dig Tuesday. We're out of money for the big dig. We can bond it. That throws into question other local road projects. You can't, there's just so much money in one pot. We can flip it to the Mass Turnpike Authority. There's a definite lack of enthusiasm for that. I went to an MBTA briefing. The MBTA budget has 37% is committed to debt service, and it's going up. That's an interesting way to run an operation. To the sum and substance of the state of the state, I can only say, God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But I'm fortunate. I have a very interesting perspective being a state legislator and a selectman, because right now I am fortunate enough to be able to watch two budget processes as they go through the system, the state and the town. And I see the state with definite problems for 96 and continuing into 97. But I see the town, on the other hand, as in a tremendous, tremendous fiscal situation. And many of you remember here in the past several years, it's only been in the last 3 years that we have actually changed the way we budget. We no longer anticipate tremendous growth revenues and commit to spending them early on at this town meeting. Along with this current Board of Selectmen and the town meeting members here, we've changed the way we've budgeted. We basically split the town meeting, if you will, into two separate town meetings, budgeting a maintenance budget this spring town meeting and then come back again at a special town meeting in the fall. When we are sure of the revenues that we have in hand, then we will make our additions, our expansions, and other possibly capital purchases. All I can say to you is being up at the state, looking at the way they budget, and looking at the way this town budgets, we have done the right thing. And it's because of you, the town meeting members, who've supported the philosophy of the budget process that the selectmen have developed. Yes, we have put money aside, arguably, as a cushion in free cash. You'll hear about that as we go along. That money is not a one-term set-aside. We're looking at arguably 5 years out in terms of tight revenues on the state. We're not going to be able to look to the state to save us. We need to save ourselves, and I think we have budgeted very well and very judiciously to do that. But we have another meeting that we're just starting. Keep it up. That money is not your money. When someone comes up and asks you for more money at this meeting, and you get the feeling that they're worthy, I'm sure they are, think about reaching into your pocket and pulling out your own checkbook and writing out a check to them. When you budget here, you're spending someone else's money. The widow in North Plymouth, the widow in Manamet. Spend it wisely, because no one's going to save us but ourselves. We're on the right track. Let's keep it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Teagan. Senator Murray.
Thank you.
At this time, I wish to introduce Chair of the Board of Selectmen, Peter Paulding, who will speak on the state of the town. Mr. Paulding.
Thought we were going to hear a rebuttal there. You know, as I prepared my remarks and began to prepare for today, I realized that this is the 375th celebration of the town. It's also April Fool's Day. I don't think the two of those have any significance, but they just happen to fall together. And I thought that I would love to get the whole town meeting and an April Fool's joke. So I thought about what I would do is I'd carry up a blank warrant of arrest in my pocket, pull it out, start to read it, get partway through it till everyone realized it was an arrest warrant, then say, oh, my mistake, and say, Gene, this is for you. Some people didn't think that was very funny. Some people didn't think that was very funny because it wasn't real. Okay, now I'll get serious. Mr. Moderator, members of the Finance Committee, fellow members of the Board of Selectmen, town meeting members, ladies and gentlemen. As chair of the Board of Selectmen, it is my responsibility and high honor to make this State of the Town address. In preparing for this address, it became apparent that the momentous 375th anniversary celebration of the town of Plymouth is upon us. My undergraduate degree is history, so I began to research in preparation for my remarks by obtaining a big old book from Town Hall entitled, or Town House as some people call it. It's entitled The Plymouth Colony Records, Volume 11, 1623 to 1682 Laws. The book contains all of the laws enacted by our Pilgrim forefathers. What struck me as I read of our heritage was the fact that the very first thing the Pilgrim Fathers did November 11, 1620, as they lay anchor at Massachusetts Bay, was to form a government. It is momentous when one realizes this is the first time in history that men freely banded together and decided what form of government that they wished to live under, an action that predates our Declaration of Independence by 156 years. Our forefathers, they decided they would rule themselves and form their own government by signing the Mayflower Compact, and it states in part that they do covenant and combine themselves together in a body politic for our better ordering and preservation, and furtherance of the ends aforesaid, and by virtue hereof do enact, constitute, and frame such just and equal laws convenient for the general good of the colony. So what laws did they enact? First, on December 17, 1623, they established a jury of 12 to try all trespass and debtor cases. On March 29, 1626, they enacted laws prohibiting the export of lumber from the colony without permission. They prohibited all tailors, shoemakers, carpenters, joiners, smiths, or sawyers from performing their trades outside of the colony without permission. And lastly, they prohibited the export of corn, beans, or peas without the consent of the colony. On January the 6th, 1627, they prohibited the construction of new thatched roof houses. Our town fathers enacted laws by their own volition from the moment they appeared in the New World. They joined together for their mutual ordering and preservation. When they did, the first two laws that they enacted was the establishment of their government and their legal system. The next three laws that they enacted addressed their preservation by turning to concerns of their own economic vitality. And lastly, they addressed their mutual safety by prohibiting fire retardant roofs on the houses. Now let's turn to the present time. While a great deal of time has passed since our 375th year of self-rule and guidance by our citizen leaders, many of the same basic concerns still exist. Some states have just celebrated their centennial year, and a town in Texas was noted last week on the Today Show for celebrating its centennial. We have arrived at year 375. We are still self-governed. We still require a jury trial system, and economic development is the focal point of this year's town meeting. Let us turn to that issue. The town of Plymouth espouses economic vitality and the encouragement of viable businesses. We have seen the tax burden that is created when we allow residential growth to proceed unencumbered. Our schools, municipal services, and infrastructure are already straining under the demands created by the sheer number of the citizens who live in our town. In an effort to ease these burdens and maintain fiscal prudence, the Board of Selectmen have taken a number of actions over the past several years. I might add, and with the support and encouragement of other board members, other town boards, and also the staff. The town's infrastructure is being adjusted to accommodate the number of residents by improvements of the existing Route 44 project. The new Route 44 project is poised for construction. South Street interchange is being improved, the rail line is coming to Cottage Park, and the airport is being enhanced. These actions can spur business growth and add to our economic vitality. We have voted a uniform tax structure for the second consecutive year. This action sends a clear message to business that they are welcome in Plymouth. We have downsized the wastewater project, yet our decisions will allow for more capacity where it will be needed most in our business districts and where on-site sewerage is neither feasible nor possible. The Board of Selectmen has been instrumental in forming a school space task force to work expeditiously and diligently towards a broad-based solution to our school space needs, which we recognize as urgent and immediate. Progress has been made by this task force, and we are creating our timeline for resolution and addressing many solutions at this time. Perhaps the most significant thing that the Board of Selectmen has approved is the Waterfront Improvement Plan. After the board's approval this week, the Department of Environmental Management is now embarking on the creation of a foundation to undertake a national fundraising campaign modeled after the Statue of Liberty Ellis Island project. With this project geared to raise over $20 million for waterfront and downtown infrastructure improvements, the image of our community will be far more visible to the nation than it is currently. We are celebrating our heritage today and are preparing to promote that same heritage to the nation to attract more tourists, pilgrim descendants, historians, and freedom lovers from all across the country and the world. We are a destination and an historic community, and we must exhibit our pride in that fact. It is also sensible to market that aspect of our community and to offer a host of opportunities to our many visitors when they do arrive here. All this has been done while keeping the tax increases for the past 2 years to the residents of the community at zero increase. The selectmen of the town of Plymouth have embarked on a path of discouraging residential growth and encouraging economic growth. The board rescinded a comprehensive permit for residential development in Manamet over some of the very issues I've been addressing. We have included the Economic Development Director and the Plymouth Development Industrial Commission in the review process for business permits and now seek their input in the decision-making process. Their recommendations are forwarded to the Planning Board for their consideration during the approval process. It must be emphasized that the quality of life is paramount to the selectmen. We do not welcome or encourage business at all costs. We do not seek to endanger our health or our safety as a community in a blind rush towards some economic idol. However, we must send a clear and unambiguous message to the business community. We do not want to be known as the Plymouth that drove a Fortune 500 company out of town, but rather a receptive and welcome business partner that will gladly participate in positive and creative projects to enhance our economic base and fiscal vitality. I do wish to end on a personal note. As you know, I have chosen not to seek re-election due to my extensive commitments with disabled sports both nationally and internationally. I want to thank my fellow board members, my family, town meeting members for your courtesy, the town staff, and especially Mr. Bill Griffin, who has demonstrated professionalism and competence that is a statewide model in his field. I've been honored to have been selected. I'm proud to have served, and and I will cherish the memory of my time as selectman. Thank you very much. You turned my head. I imagine it's all downhill from now.
Thank you, Mr. Paulding. Adele Manfredi, Chair of the Plymouth School Committee, will offer the State of the School address. Mrs. Manfredi.
Good morning. I hope you will bear with me this morning. My address to you is going to be more lengthy than usual because I would like to bring to this body and to the community an historic perspective of education in Plymouth. It's going to only feel like you're sitting here for 375 years, but I'll be as brief as I can be. By the end of town meeting, we probably will be here 375 years. I also did some research over the last few weeks in preparation for this, and I'm going to go as briefly through our history in Plymouth Colony as I can. It appears from the writings of William T. Davis, who authored the book Ancient Landmarks of Plymouth in 1883, that the Pilgrims from their landing in Plymouth in 1620 until 1672 home-educated their children. In the 1670s, free schools were established, and it was ordered by the court that the charge of this free school, which is £33 a year, shall be defrayed by the treasurer of the profits arising by the fishing of the Cape. By 1699, these receipts were insufficient to defray the expenses of education, and in that year the town voted that the selectmen shall take care to provide a schoolmaster for the town with all convenient speed, and shall settle him as near the center of town as may be with conveniency, and that every scholar that comes to write and cipher and learn Latin shall pay 3 pence per week, and if to read, 3 halfpence per week, to be paid by their masters or parents, and what shall remain due to said school to be levied by rate of the whole inhabitants in their just and equal proportion. And so the tax rate was developed. By 1704, schooling was again free, and it was voted that the inhabitants of the town should defray all expenses. The first schoolhouse built by the town was erected in 1705 on the south side of the Unitarian Church at Cooper's Alley. During the 1700s, additional schools were built, and by 1798, there were 10 schools in Plymouth, a central school, and schools in various sections of Northtown, the West District, Wellingsley, Eel River, Manamet, Cedarville, Ellisville, Halfway Ponds, and South Ponds. The town in this year had a population of 3,500 and appropriated $815 for schools. It appears that until 1793, schooling was for males only, but town meeting voted in that year to establish a female school in spite of violent opposition. One opponent lamented that the world would come to a pretty pass, in his terms, when wives and daughters would look over the shoulders of their husbands and fathers and offer to correct as they wrote such errors in spelling as they may commit. In 1855, the town meeting voted to hire its first superintendent of schools, who was, and I quote, to devote his whole time to the interest of the schools and to receive a salary not exceeding $800. The 1876 report of the superintendent read, "The entering class of Plymouth High School consists of 54 people. These, in addition to those already in attendance, make a total of 145. The seating capacity of the school is 128. Consequently, a number of the scholars must remain out until suitable arrangements can be made for their accommodation by enlargement of the building." 16 years later, a new high school was built on Lincoln Street in the building which is now Town Hall. History does repeat itself. The 1900s saw dramatic growth in the community and resulted in increasing costs. If truth be told, many of us, and myself included, remember too much of the 1900s. So I'll quickly come to our present year and recognize the current status of the Plymouth Public Schools. As we sit here this morning, the Plymouth Public Schools have increased in students from 1984 by 1,265 youngsters. There are currently 8,607 students in grades pre-kindergarten through 12, and that reflects a 17.23% increase in student population. As already has been noted by Mr. Paulding, our schools are still overcrowded, and we are all aware that this past year, an override for a new school did fail. However, 6 modular classrooms were added to Indian Brook School to temporarily help with their overcrowding. Mr. Paulding also made note of the school space task force, which has been formed, and the hope by all is that a solution to the overcrowding in the schools can be reached. I'd like to take a moment to highlight some of the achievements of both our students and our staff. This is an era, I believe, in which things that are good in people are not given much worth. And so I believe it appropriate for all of us to recognize what is best in our students and in our employees. In the area of standardized testing of student performance, in the Massachusetts Educational Assessment Test given to grades 4, 8, and 10, all of our grades in every aspect of the exam were above the state average in 12 out of 12 instances. In California achievement tests, Plymouth students in grades 1 and 3 once again scored significantly above average. They also scored above average in the comprehensive test of basic skills. The class of 1994 SAT scores maintained the level of improvement achieved by the class before it. In all of these areas of standardized testing, it is the intent and the implementation by the superintendent, central office, and school committee to search for and seek out further improvements in subsequent classes. At Plymouth North High School, Erica Holmstrand is a National Merit Finalist, which is a very significant achievement. 3 Plymouth South High School students received National Merit Letters of Commendation due to their high scores on the PSATs. In 1985, approximately 35% of the graduating class attended four-year colleges. Of last year's graduating class, 49% will be attending four-year colleges. Our vocational technical program has been extremely successful, not only for the community, but for the youngsters that participate in it. There have been significant achievements this past year, and I would like to highlight some of those for you. We presently offer 6 Tech Prep courses. Tech Prep is a challenging course of study beginning in high school and continuing through at least 2 years of post-secondary education. Tech Prep programs lead to an associate degree, eliminate curriculum redundancy, and provide the student with the opportunity to earn college credit while in high school. Tech Prep ensures the proper preparation of students to meet the demands of colleges, technical schools, and the complex workplace in which we live. Currently being offered under this program are food service management, management technology, early childhood education, construction technology, retail management, and office technology. We also participate in a mentorship program with 6 of our students being placed at Plymouth Plantation. This year we have arrangements for college credit with the New England Institute of Technology and Cape Cod Community College, which again means that students in our Tech Studies program can earn college credit while taking high school courses. Sean McCormick, a senior carpentry student, was chosen the outstanding tech student at Plymouth South High School for 1994 and was honored at a dinner in Worcester in March of '95. Our students in Tech Studies participate in VICA, which is the Vocational Industrial Clubs of America. They have had outstanding success in that organization. This past year, we had our first student qualify to attend national competition. Jeff Costa, a junior at the time, was the state winner in residential wiring and went on to the nationals. In a recent district competition, our students won 5 gold medals, 5 silver medals, 2 bronze medals. And these 12 students are now eligible to compete in the VICA state competition, which will happen this month. Students in the Tech Studies programs also participate in DECA, which is the Distributive Education Club of America. This year during competition, our students won 20 medallions, and 13 of our students will participate in state competition. 24 of our students are in a program in which they study in school for part of their time and are working in areas of choice in the community businesses the other part of their time. Our carpentry students this past year began its first house building project. This is a large house, over 31,000 square feet. And the students are also custom building kitchen cabinets, as well as doing electrical and plumbing work. Our CAD program has been expanded to a second classroom. We've added a third plumbing instructor for the outside work program and have added an aide in distributive education program as the student school has been expanded. We also have developed a computer repair and maintenance component to the electronics curriculum. This year's budget, when we review it for fiscal '96, will contain a new cosmetology program. Our students are talented in many, many areas. In music, we have some excellent talent within our buildings. Plymouth High School, the music department, hosted the 45th annual Southeast Massachusetts Student Bandmasters Association Festival at Memorial Hall. I know some of you were in attendance, and it was an awesome experience to just see and hear the talent that young people have. The concert band is also host for this year's South Shore Concert Band Music Festival. Plymouth Community Intermediate School received this year a substantial donation of a satellite receiving system, which brings new science technology into the school. We are now part of the WeatherNet program that monitors and exchanges weather information with WBZ-TV and the Museum of Science in Boston. And just last week, in fact, Channel 4 broadcast live a weather report during the 6 o'clock news from PCIS. Plymouth North High School class of '95 sponsored a donkey ball fundraiser to benefit Teresa Doyle of the class of 1997. The class raised $5,000 to donate towards Teresa's medical bills. Plymouth North High School also received a grant from Boston Edison Company, and they participated in their first competition in the U.S. first robotics competition. This is truly a business education collaborative. It involved engineers from Boston Edison Pilgrim Nuclear Power Plant and students and teachers from Plymouth North High School. The team's entry, our first attempt at this, placed 9th in regional competition in Manchester, New Hampshire. And today, in fact, they are competing in Orlando, Florida on the national level. 10 Plymouth South High School students were winners in the Boston Globe Art Show, including 3 gold keys, 1 silver key, 6 honorable mentions. The 3 gold key winners will go on to further competition. This year, Plymouth South High School initiated its first honors breakfast for academic achievement, perfect attendance, and most improved grades. This really has been a great success, and we've had over 300 students and parents attending each time the event has been held. Plymouth South High School also initiated an all-sports award evening at the end of each season in order to distribute 90% awards for students who have a 90% academic average in the season. Also, certificates of participation for sports and letters for letter winners were distributed. Students at Plymouth South High School took 1st, 2nd, and 3rd places in the Plymouth Voice of Democracy public speaking contest. Individual students at PCIS took 1st and 3rd place at the Southeastern Massachusetts Geography Fair, which was held at Bridgewater. Students also at that school took 2nd and 3rd place in the group competition at Bridgewater State. Plymouth North High School grade 9 student Patricia Glynn placed 3rd in the sectional science fair at Bridgewater State. Our classrooms reflect young people who demonstrate commendable attributes of commitment, of talent, of responsibility, and of humanitarianism. I wish and I ask you to take pride in their achievements and to recognize that the vast majority of young people reflect what is best in all of us. To continue with other things that have happened this year, as you know, the schools have tried and are implementing over a course of time new technologies and bringing computers into all of our classrooms. This past year, all of the grade 6 classrooms were equipped with local area networked computers and the IBM EduQuest multidisciplinary software. Our staff has also accomplished much during this past year. Kathy Vieira, a grade 1 teacher at Federal Furnace, was nominated for Who's Who Among America's Teachers. Warren Phillips was a National Science Foundation Award winner for his participation in Project SEED, which promotes physical science. Brenda Fancy was selected as a state finalist for the Presidential Award for Excellence in Teaching. Judy Bradley was honored by the National Science Foundation to promote science and technology among young women and eliminate gender bias. Judy also was a winner of a Northeastern University grant for classroom technology. Kathy Callanan received a Massachusetts Geography Alliance Award. Nancy Silver, a grade 2 teacher at Indian Brook, has articles constantly published, and again this year she appeared in teacher magazines. During the past year, the school system was in receipt of $2,004,144 worth of grants. $921,118 of that were grants for health and drug education. We have talented youngsters in athletics also. You know that this was the first year for 2 sets of teams in each of our sports. Even though our students were divided, we did participate in tournament play. It's interesting to note that this year, 2 of our young female athletes did exceptionally well. Nicole Diaz and Summer Ivan each scored over 1,000 career points in girls basketball. These 2 are the first girls in Plymouth history to score over 1,000 career points, and they both did it in the same year. We participated in state tournaments. Plymouth North High School's girls basketball, girls soccer, and boys soccer all competed. At Plymouth South High School, girls basketball and boys soccer competed at the state level. Girls varsity basketball at Plymouth North, that team went on to the Atlantic Coast League Championship as a winner. One young man in wrestling, Robert Monkovitz, was the state sectional champion, the Division II state champion, the all-state champion, the 4th in New England championships, and he will be competing at the national championship in Pennsylvania. At Plymouth South High School, the basketball and boys soccer teams qualified for the state tournament. Seth Williams, a cross-country runner, was the Eastern Massachusetts champion, the state champion, and ran 16th in the nationals. The cross-country team at Plymouth South were the Old Colony League champs, the Eastern Massachusetts champs, and placed 4th in the state. At lower levels, some of our youngsters have also had achievements which are noteworthy. Cold Spring 4th grade class won 1st place in the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Elementary Education Ecology Poem and Poster Program for New England, and this was their 2nd year in a row. Hedge School, the oldest school in town and the only all-walking school that we have, is now equipped with the latest technologies. Students communicate by email with other schools throughout the United States, and they surf the internet. A 6-classroom modular pod opened at Indian Brook School in November, easing the overcrowded condition temporarily and freeing up the art room, IMC, and special needs room. Manomet School, with continued funding from Boston Edison, and just as I mention that, I want to thank all of the businesses, and throughout the year there are so many donations, and we try to acknowledge them at the school committee level, but I would now at this particular time like to thank all of those businesses and organizations who devote money, time, and energy to young people. But Manomet, due to a grant from Boston Edison, is able to run an after-school program which serves over 200 youngsters. Manomet is also training teachers in effective classroom practices to foster inclusion through another grant. West Elementary School notes its 20th anniversary this month with a special celebration, which includes a commemorative mural which is going to be painted by home and school parents. Nathaniel Morton received the first major gift to the town in honor of its 375th anniversary, and that was a 9-by-12 area rug of the United States, which was donated to the school by Lakeshore Learning Company. Federal Furnace School continues to train its teachers in hands-on inclusion methodologies, and that is also through grant funding. Their after-school program, sponsored by their Home and School Association, also serves over 200 students in each of its 2 sessions. Activities at that school range from beginning Spanish to baton twirling. Even our preschool at Mount Pleasant is utilizing computer technology. And I think to end, perhaps the most gratifying and exciting news occurred just last week when it was announced that a new scholarship fund had been endowed to benefit our young people. The Grace Swift Nye and Alfred Gibbs Nye Scholarship Trust Fund is a $3.8 million scholarship endowment which has been set up to be shared by qualified high school students who are residents of the towns of Bourne, Plymouth, Sandwich, and Wareham. Mrs. Nye, a former teacher, died this past year at the age of 102. She grew up in the Cedarville section of Plymouth. And although she had not lived in the state of Massachusetts for over 40 years, she did not forget her roots. And she acknowledged through her generous gift and her belief that the achievement of young people should be recognized and rewarded. And I stand here before you taking pride in the accomplishments and achievements of young people in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Manfredi. This morning we welcome Eugene Lane, Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen, who will speak on behalf of the board at times when the board is not represented by its chair, Peter Paulding. We also welcome to this town meeting our town council, Elizabeth Lane, from Coltman and Page. And at this time, I wish to introduce the chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee, John Sanguinet. Mr. Sanguinet.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Town meeting members, citizens of Plymouth, I have a few comments to make. After standing before you in November and proceeded to lose my voice, I was afraid. I said, is this going to happen every time I stand up in front of town meeting? Well, when Wednesday morning I woke up and had my wife's cold, I said, yes, it is. Thursday I got up and prayed to the gods that govern this body, and they answered my prayers somewhat. In the 29 meetings the Finance Committee had, starting on January 25th, Finance Committee kept 3 things in mind when reviewing all the items before them. The quality of the service that the department heads would be providing to the citizens was very important to us. The effects these items would have on the current needs of the town was also important, and the effects these items would have on the future needs of the town were also important. The Finance Committee would like to thank the department heads that met with them over these 29 nights and provided them with the information to assist them in coming up with the decisions they made. Personally, I would like to thank the 14 members of the Finance Committee who put their lives on hold over the past 3 months and helped me provide the notes so I can present the recommendations to you. I would also like to thank the staff of the Finance Committee and the staff of the various departments in helping and prepare the documents you have before you today. I am... I am proud to present to you the reports and recommendations of the Advisory and Finance Committee. And if I can close and compare the decisions you'll make today to a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get until you take one out. Thank you.
Our town clerk, Mr. Pizer, advises that there are copies of the town report, supplementary materials, including our town charter and our town bylaw. They are available at the sign-in table. Some town meeting members and town officials have advised and notified the clerk or the moderator of reasons for absence. Anyone wishing to inquire as to those reasons should check with the town clerk. Today we have a live cable cast audience through the courtesy of Adelphia Cable, and also the records of this town meeting are covered on audio tape. And therefore it's requested that all speakers use one of the microphones that have been provided, that all town meeting members, town officials, and all speakers are encouraged to identify yourselves for the record. Members of the Board of Selectmen are seated on the floor. Members of the Advisory and Finance Committee are seated on the stage and on the floor. We may need additional seating during the debate of Articles 19 and 24 in view of some of the numbers of people who turned out at some of the hearings. At such time, a town meeting may be asked to move forward and closer together during the debate of those articles. But at this time, town meeting members are seated in the front half of the auditorium, and the public is seated in the back half. Non-residents may speak on any article with the permission of town meeting. Residents, taxpayers may speak at town meeting. Those who wish to present on an article are invited to come down at the start of the meeting and sit in the front row to my left. Also, if you are involved in an article and anticipate that you may be asked questions, even if you don't wish to speak but are prepared to respond to questions, we would ask that you come forward at the start of that article. And this hopefully would help to save in some of the time during our town meeting. Town meeting members are reminded that you may question a vote. If 7 town meeting members rise to question the vote, and during a standing vote, all members will remain standing until seated by your teller. Tellers are available throughout the meeting if you have special needs, if you have a concern, if you do not wish to interrupt the meeting but wish to communicate to me, you could do so through a teller. Our Board of Registrars today will be chaired by Nancy Cordero, who is serving as head teller. Tellers John Madden, Frederick Bennett, John Medeiros will also be assisting us today for counted votes. Town meeting debate is directed through the moderator. All main motions, all amendments to main motions are to be in writing, and all procedural motions, whenever practicable, are to be submitted in writing in advance. If you wish to accomplish something procedurally during the course of the town meeting, don't hesitate to get up and inquire. We'll attempt to help you to frame a motion or a question that's consistent with our parliamentary procedure and past practice. Our parliamentary procedure is governed by the Parliamentary Handbook, Town Meeting Time. If an amendment is presented in the form of a legal question, I may confer with Town Council, and such a motion may be delayed until it is written and possibly researched. Residents who wish to make motions may do so through a town meeting member. Tellers have pencils and cards available for you to reduce your motions to writing. Debate will be encouraged on all the articles. If I'm notified in advance that you wish to speak on an article, you'll be added to a list of scheduled speakers, and I will tell you that I've received many calls in advance to this town meeting for those people who wish to speak on several of the articles. I will attempt to give everyone a chance to speak once before calling on people a second time. Formal presentations will be up to 15 minutes in length by a petitioner of an article. There will not be a limit imposed on initial municipal board and municipal committee formal presentations. All other speakers will be limited during this town meeting to 5 minutes presentations. And again, It will ultimately be up to town meeting as the length of the debate, and the purpose for the limit is to give many people the chance to speak preliminarily on an article during a debate. Certainly, if everyone has spoken once and there's interest in additional debate, people will get to speak as long as town meeting wishes to hear debate. But at least in the beginning, the time allotment will be limited to 5 minutes. Town Clerk Lawrence Pizer will assist me in recording the time. This time allotment will also include question and answer exchanges. And so if a town meeting member wishes to get up and ask questions of an individual, the questioning period will be part of that town meeting member's 5-minute allotment. You are reminded that the moderator limits the scope of the debate. You limit the length of the debate. If you wish to close debate, if town meeting wishes to close debate, you may rise to move the previous question. Pursuant to our last town meeting, we adopted a standing rule that a town meeting member shall not comment or debate on the main motion when moving the previous question to close the debate. And in order to respect all the rights of the people in this room, we will follow the decorum of treating all the speakers with dignity. I'll be presiding throughout the meeting. I do wish to disclose that on annual town meeting article number 39 involves Boot Pond. I reside on Boot Pond Road, and I received notice as an abutter. I have also the petitioner of Article 40, was formerly represented by the law firm with which I'm employed. I've consulted with the State Ethics Commission and with Town Council, and upon advice, counsel, and disclosure, I intend to preside during the debate of both articles. And if a tie shall occur, I'll abstain to avoid the appearance of a conflict. I do not intend to become directly involved in the substantive discussion on any of the articles. I will attempt to be consistent and follow common sense and be a procedural facilitator. Standing votes will not be required for procedural two-third votes. We will have standing votes in the event that there's a statutory two-thirds vote which is not unanimous. We do have some two-thirds votes on a number of the articles. A motion to change the order of articles requires a two-thirds vote. You are reminded that not only may town meeting change the scheduled order of articles, a town meeting member may also, who votes on the prevailing side of a motion, may later move to reconsider the motion. And I bring that to your attention because I've received many calls about the timing of a number of the articles during this town meeting. And so it is possible to change the order. I have some motions which we'll take up shortly. It is also possible to reconsider motions. We'll recess within 2 hours from the start of the meeting as provided in our town charter. Today, lunch will be served during today's afternoon recess, which will be at approximately 1 p.m. The return of the warrant of the annual town meeting shows it has properly been served. If there are no objections, we will waive the reading of the constable's return of service of the warrant of the annual town meeting. And further, if there are no objections, we will waive the reading of the warrant. Now, at this time, normally we go into recess and take up the special. However, before we do that, I have received a few motions that are of a housekeeping nature, and I wish to take them up at this time in order that we may have some planning for the upcoming town meeting. The first motion is from Mr. Sanjanet, who moves that the adjourned sessions of the annual town meeting be held at the following dates and times: Monday, April 3rd, Tuesday, April 4th, Wednesday, April 5th, Thursday, April 6th, Monday, April 10th, Tuesday, April 11th, Wednesday, April 12th, and Thursday, April 13th, if needed, all beginning at 7:30 p.m. Any discussion on Mr. Sanjanet's motion? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Next, Mr. Sanjanet moves that we change the order of our warrant as to Article 9, and that Article 9 not be debated prior to Wednesday, April 5th. Mr. Sanjanet.
The Town Hall Study Committee has requested this change so that they can receive bids on the project to redesign and refurbish Town Hall. Finance Committee had no objections to this.
Further discussion on the motion? This requires a two-thirds vote to change the order. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Abstentions, motion carries. Mr. McSherry moves that Articles 19 and Articles 24 be taken out of order beginning Tuesday, April 4, 1995 at 7:30 p.m. Mr. McSherry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good day to everyone. An article of this scope, or both these articles of this scope, I thought it would be best that if everybody would know the exact date that would be taking that article up. I also believe that it would be best if we began town meeting with those articles so that we'd have the whole time and we'd not be trying to start it late into the evening when people would be tired. So, you know, I believe it would be best done in prime time. It would also allow a better planning of town meeting because the speakers, the order of speakers and everything could be ready to go for Tuesday when we start. And that's basically it. I just think that the very lengthy article is going to take a lot of time. If we come Tuesday, everybody will be prepared. The whole town will know that it'll be Tuesday when we're going to start the articles, and you know, we'll get the best discussion from it. Thank you.
Steve McSherry, Precinct 5. As Ms. McSherry, as I understand it, regardless of where we are at the close of debate on Monday evening, it is your intent with this motion to begin with debate on Article 19. When the debate and the vote has been concluded on Article 19, then to begin with Article 24, and then following that to return back to where we were in the warrant.
Yes, that's true. I believe if Monday we're lucky enough to be through 18, we'd skip to 20, 21, 22, you know, and so on, and skip 24 to 25, and then Tuesday we'd start with 19, then 24. It would allow all the people that want to speak to be here, not be waiting till 10:30 Monday night, seeing if we're going to start it. The townspeople that want to come will come. People will be following it on cable cast. Very important issue. It needs our full attention. I think by scheduling a specific time and date, we will get full attention. Thank you.
Debate on Mr. McSherry's motion to change the order. Yes, please come forward. Robert Haney.
Bob Haney, Precinct 9. I'd like to make an amendment to go with Article 24 before Article 19. Tuesday night is fine.
Okay, Mr. Haney moves to amend Mr. McSherry's motion to have Article 24 heard in advance to Article 19. Discussion on the motion to amend. Yes, Mr. Carl.
Ed Carl, Precinct 12. I think we should leave Mr. McSherry's proposal intact and not take this amendment up.
Further discussion on the motion to amend. If not, we'll call for a vote on the motion to amend to change Mr. McSherry's motion. The change was to take up Article 24 and Article 24 before Article 19. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. No. Abstentions. Motion does not carry. On the main motion made by Mr. McSherry to change the order to Tuesday evening, Articles 19 followed by Article 24. Further discussion? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Abstentions? Motion carries. Mrs. Collins moves that...
Mr. Moderator? Excuse me.
Yes, Mr. Carl.
I think we have another piece of housekeeping that we need to address at this time before we go into the special.
We do, and I will take Mrs. Collins' motion since she gave it to me in advance, and then I'd be happy to recognize you, Mr. Carl.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Collins moves that the debate on Article 40 be taken out of order and that it be taken up on Thursday, April 6th, 1995 at 7:30 p.m., provided that the debate has concluded on Articles 19 and 24 or as soon thereafter following the close of debate on Article 24. Mrs. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Carolyn Collins, Precinct 11. Have to bear with me, I've lost my voice. I would just like to ask town meeting to consider this change so that legal representation can be available to make a presentation on this article. And there has been a lot of discussion. This is the third time it's come before town meeting. And I know there are people that would like to be here. And in the past, they have filled the back of the auditorium for endless hours and not been heard. And then they're not available for the actual vote because it becomes late at night. So I would just like you to consider this, again, for the reasons that Mr. McSherry stated, that it is an important article to the town, and it's the third time it's being presented, and the people that would like to present on it need to be here to do an effective job. Thank you.
Debate on Mrs. Collins's motion. If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Mr. Carl.
My name is Ed Carl, Precinct 12. At this time, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to exercise some of the powers of the town meeting through the charter and sections 2-5-4 and I'll read as follows. The town meeting may at any session elect an assistant moderator. And I think, Mr. Moderator, you've addressed this earlier, and I think that it would behoove the town meeting to assign an assistant moderator so that in these questionable votes, because I don't want to see what happened in Article 16 in November happen again. Quite frankly, I think it was an embarrassment. I also think that the length of this town meeting, and I have a motion in writing that I'll submit. There are 41 articles in the annual. There are 14 articles in the special. There's 55 articles for us to discuss over the next week, 2 weeks' time. I think at that time, if Mr. Tripoletti had had some problems family-wise or whatever, and we did not have a moderator, I think we'd be slowing down the process of town meeting. And I think that it would behoove the town meeting to install a assistant moderator for this session of town meeting.
Do you have your motion? If I can receive it. Pursuant to the town charter, Mr. Carl moves to elect an assistant moderator. That can be done by the election by town meeting members. This time, I'd like to call upon Town Council Elizabeth Lane to comment as to the interpretation of that provision of the town charter.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. May I assume, Mr. Moderator, that the question relates to the powers of the assistant moderator?
Yes.
The moderator had asked me to opine as to the powers of the assistant moderator. And I have considered the language of the charter, which reads, the town meeting may at any session elect an assistant moderator. I've considered the learning and town meeting time in cases that bear on this question. And it's my opinion that the assistant moderator is not a substitute moderator. The assistant moderator is a person who, at the direction of the moderator, performs certain functions that the moderator deems to be necessary to assist the moderator. These might include such things as presiding over an auxiliary room if there were a crowd overflow or something of that nature. It is not, in my opinion, the same as a substitute moderator who serves in the absence of the moderator and exercises all his powers. So the last speaker's comments suggested that he believed that the assistant moderator would be one who would serve in the case of conflict of the moderator. In my opinion, that is not the case. In my opinion, in the absence of the moderator, this body elects an interim moderator who would serve with all the powers of the moderator, but that the absence of the moderator would be due to sickness or physical absence and not necessarily to just the inability to preside over a particular matter. The inability to preside over a particular matter is handled a number of ways in Massachusetts at town meeting and is not always done by the election of a substitute moderator. It can be done that way. It's not always done that way. Usually the town meeting makes a determination as to how important that conflict might be. But in sum, my opinion is that the assistant moderator does not have the power to preside or to vote.
Mr. Parker.
George Parker, Precinct 11. While Town Council is discussing this, I would ask that in the case, if there was a repeat of the previous town meeting, if the Massachusetts general law necessity of need would allow the present moderator to, in fact, vote if there was a tie.
Care to respond?
The matter of votes by the moderator in a representative town meeting is not a matter of state law, except to this extent, a representative town meeting requires that in order to vote, you be a representative, absent a charter provision that allows voting. In Plymouth, we do, unlike many other communities, we do, under certain limited circumstances, allow the moderator to vote. So once you go beyond the charter provision, there is no provision of law, local or state, which allows the moderator to vote in any circumstances. So the short answer is that the state law does not control.
Further discussion? The motion from Mr. Carl would be to elect an assistant moderator. I normally don't get involved in discussion, but I would just repeat what I had said earlier when I was first elected, and that is I would welcome the opportunity to have an assistant moderator work with me, not only during this town meeting, but throughout the year to be prepared in the event of my absence, illness, or death in my family. Further discussion on the motion to elect an assistant moderator? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Motion does not carry. Any further matters to come before this town meeting before we go into the special? If not, Mr. Sanjanet moves that this Plymouth annual town meeting be recessed until the Plymouth special town meeting is dissolved. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Abstentions? Motion carries at 10:35 a.m. The return of the warrant of the special town meeting shows it has been properly served. If there are no objections, we'll waive the reading of the constable's return of service of the warrant of the special town meeting. And further, if there are no objections, we'll waive the reading of the warrant. I now declare that this special town meeting is open, 10:36 a.m. Article 1, to see if the town will vote to amend the classification and compensation plans and the personnel bylaw and collective bargaining agreements contained therein, or take any other action relative thereto. I have no motion. Hearing no motion, I declare no action. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer a sum of money to be added to funds already appropriated under Article 7 of the 1994 annual town meeting for the purpose of supplementing departmental expenses, or take any other action relative thereto. Article 2, Mr. Sanjanet moves the town vote to transfer the sum of $203,401 for the purpose of supplementing departmental expenses as follows, and I will read each item as we go through it. I refer you to the spreadsheet contained in your package, and the package is contained in the materials entitled Report and Recommendations of the Advisory and Finance Committee. It has a pink cover. Mr. Sanjanet.
The items contained in this article are being funded from recognized surpluses in various funds. These transfers are within the budget maximum set forth by Mr. Griffin for the fiscal year 95. No new monies are being appropriated, and the Finance Committee has been assured that the FY96 budgets reflect the increases that we are absorbing here.
Mr. Paulding. Peter Paulding, Chair, Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Board of Selectmen have voted to approve this article. This is essentially considered a housekeeping article. It's an internal transfer of funds from account to account. It does not require any additional appropriation.
If you can refer to your spreadsheet, we'll call each category. Central purchasing, Mr. Sanjanet.
The advertising account this year has generated, there's been a record number of advertisements generated by all departments this year. The large increase was a result in the Water Department's advertising of the flushing program. This decreased the number of complaints to Town Hall. Public law requires that many items be published to ensure notice to all citizens. The town has also placed 3 ads in the Boston Globe, which cost over $1,200. It is difficult to predict the number of advertisements during the year, and with the boards and committees advertising more to ensure public notice, the costs go up. Finance Committee recommended this item.
Discussion. Legal Department. Mr. St.
With
Jeanette.
no contract negotiations budgeted in the fiscal 95 budget, this item was reduced. However, due to several legal issues that arose during the year and lawsuits that were filed, this required additional legal representation. The request is for $10,000 from the Workmen's Compensation Fund.
Discussion. Social Security. Mr. St. Jeanette.
As every year, this item is very difficult to budget and is annually estimated on the conservative side. Since its estimates are conservative, this item is annually revisited and amended. The FY96 budget has been increased by 14.2%, which will reflect the increase that is being requested here. The request is for $9,000 to come from the contributory pension account.
DPW Maintenance. St. Jeanette.
The current age of the DPW vehicles are requiring more and more maintenance. Currently, this division is averaging $10,000 per month. The current budget was for $95,000 and has become evident that there will be a shortfall. The FY96 budget has been increased to $120,000. The request is for $25,000, with the funding source being the Workmen's Compensation Fund.
Discussion. DPW Waste Collection. Mr. St. Jeanette.
The Department of Environmental Protection requires that the daily coverage of the sludge from the sewer plant be done. This is done by a contractor on days when the landfill is closed. The increase in use of materials and the need to have a contractor grind the large accumulation of brush and wood materials have created this deficit. The request is for $42,000 to be transferred from the contributory pension fund.
Discussion. DPW Sewer Division. Mr. St. Jeanette.
The town is transporting more materials to Rochester and will be billed $40,000 from what will be collected from commercial haulers. Under the contract, haulers go directly to CMAS, who bill the town. The town then bills the haulers and adds $1 per ton administration fee. This item was budgeted for $660,000, or an average of $55,000 per month. Currently, monthly bills are averaging $60,000. In addition, there is an increase in use at the Manamet Transfer Station. The request is for $51,000 from the contributory pension fund.
Discussion. Mr. Brewster.
Ben Brewster, Precinct 4. I think, Mr. Moderator, you're ahead by one. He just explained the CMAS fees, and you asked him for the sewer division equipment. I think you mixed by one.
Could you also report on the sewer as well?
Okay. CMAS. The sewer department equipment. The sewer department requested to purchase a 6-ton trailer for the new Bobcat. The current trailer is 25 years old and is only rated for 5 tons. The new Bobcat is over this limit. It is unsafe and puts more unnecessary wear on the trailer if it hauls more than the prescribed weight. The old Bobcat and trailer will go to the highway department. The request is for $3,176 to be transferred from the surplus in lab testing and analysis.
Any questions on DPW, sewer, or water? Yes, Mr. Pomeroli.
Jim Pomeroli, Precinct 11. I have a question. Why are we taking money out of the town's pension to make up shortfalls? Are we going to create an unfunded liability here that we're going to have to come back a year or two from now and throw hundreds of thousands of dollars in?
Mr. St. Jeanette.
I'm going to ask Mr. Daly if he could.
Michael Daly, Director of Finance.
The answer, Mr. Pomeroli, is no. Annually, when we prepare the budget, we start in about December, late November. We estimate a number as in the general fund budget as to what we will need to appropriate. State generally gives us a good number sometime late January. That number we transfer to the pension fund as we're required by state law. The remaining stays in the general fund, and we're using the surplus amount. No problems.
Further discussion? Town Promotion Fund, Mr. St. Jeanette.
This item was moved into the Economic Development Department's budget. There were no funds available for the secretarial services required. Currently, the services are being performed by the PDIC secretary. These funds are incorrectly budgeted in the purchase of service line.
Discussion? Town Clerk, Mr. St. Jeanette.
There was a 10.9% increase in postage in fiscal year 95. Compiled with the increased usage over the past 18 months, aggressive tax collections, street acceptances, large amounts of certified mail, and the new motor voter bill have created a need for more registered mail. The request is for $15,150 to come from the Workmen's Compensation Fund.
Discussion? Yes, Mr. Allen.
Same question, I'm sorry, Bruce Allen, Precinct 11. Same question Mr. Pomeroli had. Why have we got $67,000 free cash in that Workmen's Compensation Fund?
Yes, Mr. St. Jeanette.
Again, I'll refer to Mr. Daly.
Mr. Daly, Elena Beth, Assistant Town Manager.
We were very fortunate this year in getting a very, very favorable bid on our workers' comp insurance. One reason for that is that we have an improved experience factor. We have fewer employees getting injured on the job. Some of that can be credited to a much improved safety program, but also some of it is just the way it falls, or they fall. But the other reason is that when we went out for competitive bids, we were able to work with the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association, which is a conglomeration of only communities who have banded together to offer insurance. And by having our insurance for both workers' comp and our liability insurance together, the association offered us an $87,000 reduction in our workers' comp for getting both from the same company. It was an offer we couldn't refuse, and it's reflected in this coming year's budget. You'll see a marked decrease in the amount of money needed for insurance.
Further questions? Mr. Motta.
John Motta, Precinct 2. I'm wondering why we skipped the DPW Water Division articles.
Mr. St. Jeanette gave the report on that prior to the Water Division when I called it. Would you, following the discussion on this, Town Clerk, I will go back to that again if you have further questions. Any further discussion on the Town Clerk? Yes, Mr. Pomeroli.
Jim Pomeroli, I've noticed in past town meetings there's always been a question about the testing in the water and the chemicals and stuff, and in certain parts of the town they've always been concerned about it. And I noticed we have quite a number of transfers from the chemicals and water.
Mr. Pomeroli, we're discussing the Town Clerk, and we'll come back to the water.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the Town Clerk? If not, we'll return now DPW Water Division. Any further comments, Mr. St. Jeanette?
I'd like to review the items. I'm going to take a few of these out of order, so excuse me. Electricity. This line has been historically reduced, requiring annual supplements. It is very difficult to budget for electrical use. This budget item has been estimated higher for fiscal year 96. The request is for $8,000 from the surplus in the chemicals fund. Water maintenance, street supplies, hot mix, and water services. Due to the increased construction activity, work done on hydrants and valve replacement and the abandonment of old mains have created deficits in this account. Pumping station maintenance. 3 large items created the shortfall in this account. Failure of the Rocky Hill booster and the removal of 2 underground tanks at the Winona's Pond, and the heating system conversion at Bradford Well has also caused a deficit. If I can respond to the question about chemicals, since there was a delay in the testing of water in the town, has created a surplus in this account.
Thanks your question, Mr. Motter. Mr. Pomeroli. Discussion. Mr. Pomeroli.
Is the testing still on schedule? I mean, are we going to be short in this particular fund when the testing does have to be done?
Would care to respond? Leighton Peck, Director of Public Works.
These chemical funds that we do, in fact, have a surplus in are related to the corrosion control that we are implementing on all of the wells in town. And there is, in fact, a surplus there because we just recently come online with a couple more wells. That's the reason for the surplus. The testing that is done of the town drinking water supply, that's an ongoing program. It's mandated by the state and has to be done weekly for some tests and monthly for others. and reports submitted to the state. So, we are governed by law as to how we test our drinking water supply.
Further discussion on the DPW Water Division? Returning back, I've been advised that on the department requesting town clerk, that's actually the switchboard mailroom account. The final group relate to personal services, the assessing, town clerk, collector, police department manager, emergency preparedness. Mr. Sanjanet.
The following 6 items for transfer all pertain to the clerical classification plan that was accepted by the clerical union in January. All monies requested are being transferred from the selectmen's budget, which was placed there at the November special town meeting. All monies requested are going into the personal services line for the following departments: assessing, $974; town clerk, $680; collector, $69; police department, $1,207; town manager, $1,204; and emergency preparedness, $441.
Discussion? Any discussion at all on any of the Article 2 transfers? Further discussion? Mr. McSherry.
Steve McSherry, Precinct 5. Going back to the DPW Water Division electricity, this $8,000, that's an addition to the $5,000 that we approved in the special town meeting, the special town meeting, and is that related again to the moving the water department into the highway building, the old highway building on Long Pond Road?
Sanjanet.
The money that was moved at the November special was to provide electricity to the old highway barn that the water department realized it was going to need for this fiscal year. The money that we are transferring today is a shortfall in this budget line, and it is above and beyond that $5,000.
Okay, so now we're up to $13,000.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion on Article 2? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer a sum of money to refund taxes and interest to the Surfside Homeowners Association or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Sanjanet moves that the town vote to transfer the sum of $2,850 from the pension budget to refund taxes and interest to the Surfside Homeowners Association in accordance with a special act of the legislature approved on December 27, 1994. Mr. Sanjanet.
Under current state law, the town cannot abate any tax that an application for abatement has not been filed for. At the April 1994 special town meeting, the Board of Selectmen was authorized to file special legislation in order to pay this refund. The refund is for taxes paid on town-owned land that Surfside Home and Lots Association was assessed for. The refund includes interest of 8%, or $988, and the request is for $2,850, which is calculated through April 20th. The Finance Committee supported this article.
Mr. Paulding.
Thank you. You may recall that this is a situation where the Surfside Homeowners Association was paying taxes on property that, in fact, wasn't theirs, and this is an attempt to just set that right. This is the last step in the process. This is the actual payment after it's been authorized, which we did last town meeting. This is the payment of that money to the association.
Further discussion on the motion? Yes. Mr. Lombard.
Chris Lombard, Precinct 10. Just one question on the interest. Could you tell me what that per annum figures out to be and what sort of time span are we talking about these taxes were overpaid?
Michael Daly, Director of Finance.
The statute requires an 8% rate of interest applied to refunds on taxation. So it's 8%. It's for taxes paid from 1985 through 1990, and each year is calculated at the 8% over the period of time that they have been paid.
Thank you.
Further discussion? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Pursuant to our town bylaw, this special town meeting stands in recess for 15 minutes.
This is Adelphia Channel 18. My name is Ted McGuire. We've Got through the first 2 hours of this special town meeting within the annual town meeting for Plymouth. Got through Articles 1, 2, and 3. No action on Article 1, or no motion, rather. Therefore, no action on Article 1. And Article 2 and 3, of course, motion carried, as you just saw. I'd like to go over give thanks to a few crew members we have today. On my engineer to my left here, Michael Renz from Adelphia Cable. On camera, we have two volunteers, Stephen Moreau and Eric Bratloff. And for the audio this fine morning, actually, we have Jim Donovan from the school department and his student audio assistant, Kerry Ashforth. I want to thank all of those folks. For Adelphia Cable Communications, I'm Ted McGuire, and we will continue with this live coverage as the action here continues. First, we have a special message from the Cable Advisory Board for the town of Plymouth. This message coming from David Regan, the chairman.
Good evening, Plymouth residents. The Cable Advisory Committee is holding its final public hearing on the cable renewal license. It's Thursday, April 13th at the Plymouth Public Library at 7:30 p.m. All are urged to attend. Please attend. It's 7:30 p.m., April 13th at the library. Plenty of parking. We look forward to seeing you there.
This is Adelphia Channel 18. You're watching the scene now live at the high school here, Plymouth North High School. And the town meeting for Plymouth, of course, is now on a brief recess. And as the action continues, we will, of course, be here all day covering the town meeting. This is Adelphia Channel 18. We now turn you over to some recess music.
I'd like to invite town meeting members, if you could come into the room and take your seats. I wish to thank those who participated in the opening ceremony today. Plymouth town meeting members Bruce Allen, Carolyn Collins, Eileen Scheck, Brian Whitfield, and Maureen Lilla for their participation in the choral ensemble performing the national anthem. In addition, we express appreciation to Adelphia Cable, today to Mike Renz and Ted McGuire for their assistance in cablecasting this town meeting live. In addition, if this town meeting adjourns to other nights, which it will still be cablecast also on Adelphia Cable. Thank you to James Donovan of the school department, who is overseeing the audio-visual arrangements for this session, and to his assistant, student Kerry Ashforth. Mr. Donovan has also requested that with the next article, we have some audio-visual needs, and in future articles, if any of you here at this town meeting require the use of a slide projector or other audio-visual aids, would you please communicate that need to Mr. Donovan, who is in charge of the audio-visual arrangements, in order that we may coordinate them. We wish to also thank town meeting members. Please be seated quietly so we can continue. We wish to thank the Color Guard, Pilgrim's Progress, Stuart Hall, who is an officer from Plymouth, the Hingham Train Band of 1637, Mr. Fred Hills, Grammy Marsden, Richard Shaner, Alan Stewart Tilley, Justine Stewart Tilley, and Robin Stewart Tilley. We wish to thank all of them for participating in our opening ceremony. We also wish to thank the sophomore class for providing refreshments today. And this facility has been provided by the Plymouth School District for use today. We wish to thank the entire custodial staff, in particular to Manny Costa, who is in charge today for the setup and the cleaning. I've also been asked to announce that today we have representatives from the 375th Anniversary Committee seated outside of the auditorium. They are making available tickets for the kickoff reception of the 375th Anniversary Celebration of Events this year. The reception is scheduled for April 22nd at the Mayflower House, and there will be 400 tickets available, and there are 100 remaining. At this time, we will continue with Article 4 of our special town meeting. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer a sum of money to refurbish the exterior of Cold Spring School or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Sanjanet moves that the town vote to transfer the sum of $13,000 from fund balance for capital projects for the purpose of installing vinyl siding and otherwise refurbishing the exterior of Cold Spring School. Said funds to be expended under the supervision of the Plymouth School Committee. Mr. Sanjanet.
The Finance Committee approved this article. The exterior of Cold Spring School is in desperate need of maintenance. The initial request was for $17,000 to paint the exterior. However, it was deemed that vinyl siding is preferred over paint because it is cheaper to maintain and does not need to be replaced. Siding will also encapsulate any existing lead paint that may exist. The Selectmen, School Committee, and Capital Outlay were all supportive of this item. This item is not included in the capital plan because there was a miscommunication between all the groups involved. The Finance Committee approved $13,000 for this request, hoping that it would be bidded in conjunction with the project currently in the master plan. This article was not recommended by the capital plan because it was not included in their project as stated.
Mr. Paulding.
Is it on now? Okay. The Board of Selectmen also supports this article for the same reasons that Mr. Sanjanet just expressed. There was some discrepancy in the amount of funds that was requested and then approved, but the Board of Selectmen reviewed the amount the other night, and we are now recommending the same amount that the FinCom is, and that's the $13,000, because there is a project that's already ongoing at that school, which is the replacement of some of the storm windows. It is felt that in conjunction when the staging is in place and the workers are already at the school, that the project could be done more economically.
Thank you. Although this article was sponsored by the Board of Selectmen, the original petitioner was Diane Nelson. At this time, I wish to call Plymouth Town Meeting member Diane Nelson from Precinct 3, who will make a petitioner's presentation. Ms. Nelson.
Good morning. My name is Diane Nelson. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 3, and I'm representing the parents of Cold Spring School. I am joined by other supporters of this article. The supporters are getting younger and younger as the process continues. I am asking you to vote in favor of this article to refurbish the exterior of the school. What this essentially means is to side the trim of the school. The figure I am requesting is $13,000. For those who are not familiar with Cold Spring School, I have slides which were taken demonstrating the condition of the exterior of the school. Since a picture is worth 1,000 words, I'll try to keep mine to a minimum and let the slides do the talking. This is Cold Spring School. This is the Alden Street side. This is the triangular section that might come up. This is the largest section of trim on the school. There are a lot of nice detail work in the school, and it's unfortunate that it's in the condition that it is because it's really quite a charming school. There's several of these windows. These would have to be painted, not trimmed. I don't know if you can see, but unfortunately, there's some also broken glass in those windows, but I don't think you can see it. This might be part of the problem. Some of the gutter work has to be connected to the downspouts. This obviously shows a little bit of deterioration on the foundation. This is one of the cupolas, and you can see the paint peeling on this. Apparently, the type of boarding on the cupola and also on the Alden Street section does not take well to paint, and the paint doesn't adhere well to those surfaces, as you can see. This is okay. Essentially, I think you can see that the school really is in dire need of painting. It was last painted in 1986 or 1987, and it's my understanding that within 3 years it needed to be painted again. This is one of the columns on the doors. Around the doors, I don't know if you can see it. It doesn't look very clear from my perspective, but there is some wood rot as a result of water damage, I presume. These pictures, incidentally, I'll give credit to our roaming photographer, were taken by Dr. Steve Kerr, an excellent dentist as well. You can go right on to the next slide. This is another window with more broken glass, unfortunately. I think you get the idea of the dire need. I think that's the last slide. Yeah. Some people have described the condition as a disgrace. Some people have called it an embarrassment. I would simply say it is a project whose time has come, and I hope after seeing the pictures that you also agree. Mr. Montrond has obtained 3 estimates for this work, ranging from $12,800 to $17,200. What I am proposing is that the town spend an amount not to exceed $13,000 to vinyl side the trim. I think this is an exceptionally modest figure considering the amount of trim on the school. None of those slides did show the back of the school, and the back is quite an extensive area, so this, I think, is an exceptionally good price for the amount of work that's going to be done. My original proposal requested funds to paint the exterior of the building, but several factors indicated that siding would be a better solution, which I reviewed, so I'm not going to go over it again. Painting, the estimates for painting ran between $18,000 to $28,000. Siding is a long-term solution to a recurring problem, and so the town, you're not going to see this project come up for many, many years. And as Mr. Sanchinet pointed out, it was questionable whether lead paint was an issue, and siding would eliminate lead paint concerns since siding is considered encapsulation. Aesthetically, siding is a viable option. A reputable and experienced siding company can recreate the detail work, which I don't know if you were able to see in the slides, but there's some wonderful detail work in this older building. And so aesthetically, it would be a viable option. And lastly, although it can be debated whether there are structural concerns or whether this is purely cosmetic, if this isn't addressed soon, then the price of doing this is going to be a lot costlier in the future, when there's no question that the wood has lost the battle with the elements. I just want to say one more thing about where the money is coming from so that the widows in North Plymouth and in the west part of town don't worry about their checkbooks. I am not proposing that we fund this project through an increase in taxes. The funding source for this is from the capital reserve of unexpended balances. Jobs previously completed which have excess money remaining will fund this much-needed project. So this is not going to be a tax increase. Please help us to foster pride in our school and in our community, and join the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen in supporting this project. Thank you.
Discussion. Yes, Mr. Burke.
Bill Burke, Precinct 13. I intend to support this particular article wholeheartedly. I guess I'm more disappointed to look at one of our town facilities to be in this condition. This is a total shame. I would ask at this point for a couple of minutes from somebody in the school system that is going to tell us that this is going to cease and desist, and that these schools are not going to continue to deteriorate. There's such a thing as preventative maintenance in this world. And I think if this was our house, we'd be totally ashamed of it. So I would like to see, I'd like to ask someone to come before us and tell us what's going to be going on now so that we're not going to have another citizen group come before us and say, help us with our school. This is ludicrous.
This is a capital expenditure. I'd like to first call upon Denise Robitaille, Vice Chair of the Capital Outlay Committee. Ms. Robitaille?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. The Capital Outlay did not recommend approval of this project. However, it's important to note that we did not question whether or not this project was worthy or whether or not the need did exist. However, there was a serious concern about another petition project coming forward and circumventing the capital process. We have a very extensive process in this town for all capital projects, and there was concern about circumventing that process, and that was the reason that we did not approve it.
Ms. Manfredi, do you care to further respond to Mr. Burke's questions and comments? Adele Manfredi, Chair, Plymouth School Committee.
Yes, I absolutely understand Mr. Burke's consternation and the parents' frustration. I think town meeting perhaps is aware, and if not, I am here to tell you that Cold Spring School's condition is reflected in some of our other buildings. There is no question about that. The schools have tried to work through the capital process, but the needs are great, and we have not been able to fund all of the projects that we would like to have done or need to have done. Those projects that reach the top of the priority list tend to be the projects which have safety issues involved in them. I do not stand here and deny that this building needs to be refurbished or that other buildings in the school system or perhaps in the town need serious attention. It's a problem, I think, that we need to grapple with and we need to face. It does require funding, and that is an issue. I certainly will support this article.
Further discussion? Yes, Mr. Morrison.
Walter Morrison, Precinct 12. I, too, am concerned about this building, and I think it should be attended to, and I think the funds that are being appropriated are appropriate, and they're coming from the right place and not going to impact the tax rate at all. This is an old, historic building, and it should be preserved, and it has a long legacy of quality education there. I urge you to support it.
Further discussion on the motion? Yes. Mr. Ryan.
Ed Ryan, Precinct 11. I would support the article, but I do have two questions. One,
the guarantee that comes with the vinyl siding, the quality level of it, because I know there are various levels of siding that'll give you different longevity for the repair. And will the repairs that recommended, the $13,000, cover the entire building, or are we going to miss something by limiting the amount?
Would care to respond? You looking for a response, Mr. Ryan? Yes, Diane Nelson. Yeah. Arthur Montran, did you care to respond to that question? Arthur Montran, Chief of Building and Grounds, Plymouth Public Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The warranty on vinyl siding, I couldn't tell you. I haven't looked into that yet. I just got the quotes from Mrs. Nelson. And there are different types of vinyl siding. All of the contractors we've had down to the school, when they looked at the project, would recommend different things in different areas. Vinyl siding on the flats are okay, but around the doorways, for instance, they would look at other materials that would stand up a little better than the vinyl, so they wouldn't be chipped and broken.
Mr. Ryan?
The other question was the extent of the repairs. How much will the money's being provided, the fact that there's a work crew on site, how much of the repairs will be done? What is likely to be left over?
The estimates that I had gotten from Mrs. Nelson were to do the entire exterior of Cold Spring School.
Thank you.
Mr. Groton?
Steve Grattan, Precinct 13. I also want to state my approval and hopefully that this project can move forward, but I have one stipulation that's been a pet peeve after having my kids playing soccer up there for 2 years. Again, a cost-saving measure for the town. You've got high-pressure sodium lights around the perimeter of the building, running full blast 7 days a week during daylight hours. Can we turn those off and vote in support of having the vinyl siding on the school? Thank you very much.
Further discussion on the motion. Mr. Parker?
George Parker, Precinct 11. I believe approximately a year ago, we had a discussion on the floor of town meeting about maintenance, building maintenance articles having to compete against new equipment in the capital outlay. Again, we now have an article within the special town meeting because it was rejected by the capital improvement program that we have. I thought the consensus was that the town manager and the capital improvement committee were going to look at setting up something where building maintenance was not going to have to compete against other projects. If the assistant chairman or vice chairman of the committee would discuss that, I would certainly like to hear it. I think it's a necessary project and I will support it, but I do have one question for somebody. The statement was made about putting the vinyl over lead paint, and I believe that should be looked at because I don't think it's legal anymore.
All right, the first question, Denise Robitaille, Vice Chair, Capital Outlay Committee.
Very briefly, I would like to correct a misunderstanding. This project was not rejected by the Capital Outlay Committee. It was not submitted.
As to the second question, Mr. Montran, do you care to respond?
As far as the encapsulation of lead paint goes, it is authorized by state law to encapsulate lead paint. I don't believe that you'll find that when we test that paint, it is lead paint. It was painted in 1986. I don't believe it's lead paint.
Further discussion on the motion? Yes, Mr. Vandini.
Charlie Vandini, Precinct 1. Since I consider Cold Spring part of North Plymouth, I'm 100% for it.
Yes.
Gary Hayden, Precinct 9. Why was it not submitted?
Anyone care to respond? Mr. Montron.
The capital outlay process for the school department that was submitted was some $2,156,598. And quite frankly, after reviewing all those projects, this one was just missed.
Further discussion on the motion? Yes. Mr. Burns?
Tom Burns, Precinct 13. Just one quick question. We've been talking about the vinyl siding. What about the concrete work? Is that covered also? Because it seems pretty fundamental that if we don't attack the structure right now, that condition's only going to deteriorate and worsen, and that's pretty fundamental to the integrity of the building. Is the concrete work included in this?
Mr. Montron?
No, it would not be included in that. That's covered under my own budget, my own fiscal budget for the year, and that'll be taken care of this summer.
I see. All right. That's fine.
Further discussion on the motion? Yes, Mr. Shirley.
Russell Shirley, Precinct 11. I'm going to support the project. I'm of the opinion that Manomet School and Nathaniel Morton School are equally in bad shape at this time. I'd like to ask if those two projects, projects similar to that, are included in the capital outlay budget, and whether or not those are going to be addressed this year as well.
I would just say that that is really outside of the scope of this article. We will be coming to capital outlay in Article 9, and if possible, I'd ask that we hold it until we discuss the school articles at Article 9. Mr. Shirley.
I actually disagree that it's outside the scope, because if we spend this money here, I know it's coming from someplace else, even though I'm going to support it. I also want to know that this money is not being spent over and above another article with a similar problem in two other schools.
The article does relate to Cold Spring as to projects being submitted as to other schools. We will be taking that up during the annual town meeting under Article 9. Ms. Enos.
I think what we just heard is going to be a problem. And I don't want to say that I'm not North Plymouth, because I was born in North Plymouth. I went to Hedge School. All my children went to Cold Spring School. But people that live in Manomet might feel that Manomet School looks awful and needs a lot of work. Indian Brook School has a lot of problems. I think we have to go through the capital outlay process and look at all the projects. My house might need as much work as your house. You know, it's all a matter of degrees, and it's a matter of which group has a good following, which has a good support, and which really works. And I commend these people, and I feel badly that our schools are in this shape, and that a lot of our buildings are in this shape. But I think we have to prioritize things and look at them as a whole and not as an individual.
Further discussion on the motion? Mr. Carl.
Ed Carl, Precinct 12. I'd like to move the question.
Mr. Carl moves previous question. It is not debatable. It requires a two-thirds vote to end debate. All those in favor of the motion to close debate, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Abstentions, motion carries. Now moving to the main motion. We will now be voting. This is a simple majority on the motion Article 4. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Abstentions, motion carries. Article 5. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer a sum of money to purchase and install an above-ground diesel fuel tank for the Bourne Road Fire Station, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Sanjanet moves that the town vote to transfer the sum of $7,000 from the insurance budget to purchase and install an above-ground diesel fuel tank for the Bourne Road Fire Station. Said funds to be expended under the supervision of the town manager. In your package of materials, there is a map which gives you the locus. Mr. Sanjanet.
This is the final step in getting the Bourne Road Fire Station back to full service. The contamination problem that was discovered there last spring has been corrected, and test wells show there is no more groundwater contamination. The request is to have a 280-gallon above-ground diesel fuel tank installed at the station. This tank is a double containment tank which is designed to ensure that no leakage will occur. The type of tank was requested due to the high number of wells in the area. The Finance Committee was in full support of this article.
Mr. Paulding.
The Board of Selectmen is also in support of this article.
Discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Abstention, motion carries. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer, or borrow a sum of money for additional design services for Phase 3B Facilities Plan Environmental Impact Report for the wastewater treatment facility plan, or take any other action relative thereto. I have no motion on Article 6. Having no motion, hearing no motion, I declare no action. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer a sum of money to clean up hazardous material at the town-owned building on Howland Street, the former Water Division building, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Sanjanet moves the town vote to transfer the sum of $8,300 previously appropriated under Article 14 of the 1994 Annual Town Meeting Saving Lives Program to clean up hazardous material at the town-owned building on Howland Street, the former Water Division building, said funds to be expended under the supervision of the town manager. Mr. Sanjanet.
The 21E study funded at the fall town meeting showed that there was contamination at the Howland Street property. The Department of Environmental Protection requires that all gravel be excavated, packaged, and disposed of accordingly. The town must ensure that this site is clean from any contamination before it can be sold. To do this, the Water Department has requested this funding. The Finance Committee, again, was in full support.
There's a locus map contained in your materials. Mr. Paulding.
As you know, town meeting has already approved and authorized the sale of this property. I'm told by Mrs. Beth that there is a great deal of interest in parties to purchase it. We couldn't really do so because it would be difficult for any prospective buyer to obtain funding without a clean bill of health on a 21E. This will allow that to happen and allow that sale to go forward. We're in support of it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Abstentions, motion carries. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer a sum of money to install 2 monitoring wells at the former highway barn on Long Pond Road, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Sanjanet moves the town vote to transfer the sum of $7,400 from the insurance budget to install 2 monitoring wells at the former highway barn on Long Pond Road, said funds to be expended under the supervision of the town manager. There is a map of the locus in your package of materials. Mr. Sanjanet.
When 2 fuel tanks were removed from the old highway barn, it was determined that some ground contamination was present. Due to the area in which the contamination was found, it was determined that 2 monitoring wells were needed. The earth surrounding the area has been removed as a precautionary measure to ensure the confinement of this contamination. The monitoring wells must remain in place until sufficient clean samples are obtained to satisfy the Department of Environmental Protection requirements. The Finance Committee was in support.
Mr. Paulding.
The Board of Selectmen also supports this article. It's prudent given its location, and we would view it as an ounce of prevention.
Further discussion? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer a sum of money to repair sidewalks on Water and Howland Streets to bring them in conformance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Sanjanet moves the town vote to transfer the sum of $35,000 from the fund balance for capital projects to repair sidewalks on Water and Howland Streets to bring them in conformance with the American with Disabilities Act, said funds to be expended under the supervision of the town manager. There is a locus map contained in your materials. Mr. Sanjanet.
In August of 1994, a complaint was filed regarding the curb cuts and sidewalk slopes along the waterfront in not being in compliance with the American with Disabilities Act. In total, there were 21 sites that were documented for noncompliance. 50% of these sites were eliminated. After negotiations with the Architectural Access Board, 8 violations were found left in noncompliance. Variances were found in 5 of these sites, and the remaining 3 sites were still in violation. If the 3 violations are not finalized by July 1, 1995, the town could be subject to a $1,000 a day fine until the work is completed. Since the statute of limitations has will not allow us to go back and have the contractors fix these, the town is responsible. All future contracts have built-in safeguards to protect the town. The Capital Projects Committee did support this article, and the Finance Committee was in full support also.
Mr. Paulding?
The Board of Selectmen also has voted to support this article. The sidewalks were constructed in the late 80s, which is actually just prior to the implementation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. At the time, the contracts did not adequately address this issue. However, all future contracts of the town do. They require any new construction of sidewalks to be ADA compliant, and if they are not, the contractor who puts in the sidewalk will be required to come back and redo it at his expense. So we've addressed the issue for the future. This is correcting a problem that occurred in the past.
Discussion on the motion? Yes. Mr. Ryan?
Ed Ryan, Precinct 11. It's nice to see there's some compromise on the State Architectural Access Board. Are the variances permanent, is one question, and do these variances, in these instances, protect us from future suits from disabled people?
Helena Beth, Assistant Town Manager.
Yes, the variances are permanent, and for those particular areas, they would not entertain complaints about those again because they are permanent.
Further discussion? Yes, Mr. Pomeroli.
James Pomeroli, Precinct 11. This seems kind of excessive, $35,000. You're talking $12,000 a sidewalk there, a cut. Is this going to be done by the town? Is this going to be going out to private contractors? Seems kind of excessive, the cost of it. I'd like someone to address that, please.
Joseph Pine, Assistant Department of Public Works Director.
The biggest expense for the $35,000 is on Howland Street. Basically, the whole street on both sides is going to be redone. At each curb cut, there is a violation, and generally, the cross slopes on all the sidewalks exceed the allowable 2%.
Would you care to come to the microphone with a follow-up question?
George Parker, Precinct 11. I'm asking the question, does this mean that we're going to have all new sidewalks on Howland Street?
Mr. Pine?
Yes, we are.
Further discussion on the motion? Yes, Mr. Carl.
On this locus map, there are 2 spots on Water Street. That, if it's my understanding, I thought that Water Street project just completed not too long ago, and we have no recourse to get these 2. I must have missed something. Somebody could answer that for me.
Speaker is Edward Carl. Mr. Pine.
Under the contract in which these were done, while the statute of limitations hasn't expired, the contractor that did this has gone bankrupt and is now operating under a different company name, so he's untouchable.
Further discussion on the motion? Yes, Mr. Allen.
Was there bonding for this contractor that went bankrupt?
Mr. Pine, if you know.
Yes, there was, but I believe that only lasts for a year after the project is completed.
Further discussion on the motion? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. No. Abstentions? Motion carries. Article 10. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer a sum of money to be added to the funds voted in Article 5 of the June 27, 1994 special town meeting, or take any other action relative thereto. I have no motion on Article 10. Hearing no motion, I declare no action. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to amend Section 400.02 of the zoning bylaws by amending the official zoning map by changing the designation of the land shown on zoning map number 1, Plymouth Quadrant, and described as the land lying northerly of Nix Rock Road and Enterprise Drive, southeasterly of the town of Kingston and southwesterly of Route 3, from LI, light industrial, to AC, arterial commercial, or an alternative district designation, as well as associated tables, sections, and definitions, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Sanjanet moves that the town vote to amend the zoning map and bylaw, Section 400.02, by amending the official zoning map by changing the designation of the land shown on zoning map number 1, Plymouth Quadrant, and described as the land lying northerly of Crow's Way and Enterprise Drive, southeasterly of the town of Kingston and southwesterly of Route 3, from light industrial to LI light industrial to AC arterial commercial, and to include in the zoning bylaw the new section 401.24, mixed commerce, as shown in the final report and recommendation of the Planning Board on the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw to rezone from industrial LI to mixed commerce MC, certain land shown on zoning maps 1 and 2, Plymouth Quadrant. This vote requires a 2/3 majority. In your package, there is a map and report, 4 pages from the back behind the maps. Mr. Sanjanet.
A request has been made to have this property located on the Kingston Town Line and along Enterprise Drive, zoned as mixed commerce. This will be regarded as a new commercial zone for the town. It is advisable for Plymouth to plan a new commercial uses along this corridor, since it will serve as a good alternative for the commercial growth on 44. This site is visible from Route 3 and would be a prime location for large retailers such as Home Depot or Circuit City. The Finance Committee was in support of this article.
Mr. Paulding.
Sorry, I've tried to anticipate these when my turn's going to come up. The Board of Selectmen discussed this issue, and this is a parcel of land that's up in the industrial park area. It's also contiguous, more or less, to the similarly zoned property in Kingston. So this gives us an opportunity to be competitive with our neighbor who is competing with our downtown business. We felt that this was a consistent use and have supported the rezoning change.
Discussion on the motion? Yes. Mr. Withington, please come to the microphone.
Richard Withington, Precinct 4. Could we hear from the Planning Board?
Mr. Babini.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Planning Board voted to support this unanimously, concur with the comments made by the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. We looked at this extensively, felt it was a good addition, gives us the opportunity for additional tax base, take advantage of an infrastructure of road systems which is developed in the area at this time, and we felt that it would be a good change, so we supported wholeheartedly.
It was Michael Babini, Chair of the Planning Board. Mr. Burke.
Bill Burke, Precinct 13. Just a question perhaps for Mr. Babini while he's still on his feet there. I don't see any big problem with this, but I would ask about any of the abutters, any of the neighbors at your hearing that you had on this, or hearings. Was there any objections to it from the residents?
Not that I recall, Mr. Burke.
No. Okay, then I stand in support of this.
Further discussion on the motion. Mr. Parker.
George Parker, Precinct 11. Mr. Babini, I'm kind of disappointed in the locus map in that it does not show the new Route 44's location. And I would ask you if this parcel of land has the same problem that our industrial park is going to have, that you can't get there from here without going somewhere else and coming back on town roads.
I believe that under the new layout, this will be serviced through that interchange, so I don't think that will be a problem. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lee.
Lee Hartman, Town Planner.
Thank you. If you look at the locus map you have, you'll see that the access to this property is most likely through the Kingston side and a portion of Independence Drive. So but we'll be looking at the principal access being exit 8 on the highway.
My follow-up
Parker.
question to that is not Enterprise Drive, whatever it's called in Kingston, a private road?
Mr. Hartman?
Yes, it is. It would be assumed that any development that occurs off of there would take approval from whoever owns those properties, whoever has the rights to use those properties before those roads could be used as access.
Further discussion on the motion? Mr. Pomeroli?
Before we go assuming that whoever owns that private road is going to give permission for development there, shouldn't we find out ahead of time rather than putting the cart before the horse? I mean, this makes no sense. We vote to change it, and then the mall says, no, you're not going to use our road. If I'm not mistaken, they already told PA Landers and a few other people in the mall they're not going to use the road. So why bother with this until we find out if we can use the road?
Mr. Hartman?
The situation would remain the same now. It's zone light industrial, and that property is under those same constraints today. It's a legal right issue that's really beyond zoning that property owners have to work out.
Further discussion. Follow-up question, Mr. Pomeroli.
Then why bother changing it?
Mr. Babini?
I think the thought behind the change is before they can even attempt to approach the issue of the access, the zoning has to allow the types of uses that we're allowing through this zoning change. As any property in the town of Plymouth or any other town, once the zoning changes, it's up to the owners of the property to deal with issues around access and those types of things. I think the concern here is that, or at least the thought behind this was, because of the location, because of the road infrastructure that's there, it's likely that at some point in time, those issues will be resolved. But the fact of the matter is, under this particular zoning that exists there today, the types of uses that seem to be in demand there aren't allowed. So this is kind of the first step. If they can't work out the issues, the land stays in its existing state. But at least this gives the incentive to go ahead and try to work those things out between the owners and of the abutting properties.
Further discussion. Yes, Mr. Ellis.
Larry Ellis, Precinct 8. I'd like to know how large this piece of property is.
Mr. Hartman.
It's approximately 55 acres.
Is there any chance we could build a mall there?
Mrs. Chafee.
Mickey Chafee, Precinct 5. I'd like to ask questions of Mr. Hartman. I don't have a problem with changing the zone if it is, in fact, to help keep competitive with what's going on the other side of the town line. I'm curious, though, as to why the dimension and intensity requirements, as outlined here, are so small. According to the report from the Planning Board, you can have retail uses, swimming pools, gymnasiums, theaters, but these are all by special permit. Hotels and retail uses under 10,000 square feet, which certainly sounds like a strip mall to me. I'm wondering why you didn't create minimum requirements larger than 40,000 square feet. That's not very big.
We use the requirements that are out in the existing town. These are the requirements that you typically see in the arterial commercial zone. So we use the standard requirements for the setbacks that we have in other parts of the town. The one thing we did do, if you look, is it required a 200-foot buffer off the highway. So that is one requirement that is greater than what you see other places. So there is a larger buffer off the highway.
Buffers off highways are fine. I'd like to see more buffers between strip malls and bowling alleys and whatever. My opinion is that these requirements are much too lenient.
Further discussion on the motion. Mr. Tavares.
Mr. Moderator, question to the Planning Board. Lee, who owns this land now?
Mr. Hartman.
There's a mix of owners here. But are you familiar with the exact owners?
Michael Gallerani, Director of Economic Development.
One of the parcels, Mr. Tavares, is owned by Mr. Venazaro. Another is under a realty trust called Dingley Dell. And another parcel is owned by the Pyramid Companies, which own the mall. Pyramid Companies, the owners of the mall.
Well, that answers part of our question earlier. Have they gone to the commission and asked for this, or
No,
are
the
you
owner-
doing this
the
on
own-
your own as a commission?
The owner of the Dingley Dell property asked for it.
And the other two owners, Pyramid and
Agreed.
the Venazaro family, agree?
Yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion? If not, we'll call for a vote. This is a two-thirds vote. If it is not unanimous, it will be counted. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, say no. Abstentions? I'll call for the vote one more time. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Abstentions? Will the tellers please come forward? This time, I'd like to ask that all those in favor of the motion please stand and remain standing until seated by your teller. Mr. Bennett.
I have 20.
20. Mr. Medeiros.
25.
25. Mr. Madden. 22. Mrs. Cadiro. 18. All those opposed, please stand.
Sit down, Steve.
Mr. Bennett.
2 opposed.
2. Mr. Medeiros.
2.
2. Mr. Madden. 4. Mrs. Cadiro. 3. Abstentions. None. The vote, 85 voting in favor, 11 in opposition. The motion carries. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to amend its zoning bylaws, Section 401.11, transitional commercial, as it relates to the uses provided for therein, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Sanjanet moves the town vote to amend its zoning bylaws, Section 401.11, transitional commercial, as shown in the final report and recommendation of the Planning Board on the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw as it relates to the requirements and specifications for transitional commercial. To add Section 4, to add to Section 401.11, paragraph D, special permit uses, subject to environmental design conditions, the following new use category as subsection 5, small restaurants of no greater than 5,000 square feet of floor area with no drive-through service located within the North Plymouth Village service area only. This motion also requires a two-thirds vote. There are materials contained in the package. Mr. Sanjanet.
This article was requested to add this amendment to the zoning bylaws. The main area of property that is zoned transitional commercial is located along Court Street from the Kingston Town Line to approximately the Pontiac dealership. The Finance Committee felt that this was an opportunity to invite these types of businesses to that area of town. Any current properties that exist that are in this area would not be affected by this change. The Finance Committee was in full support.
Mr. Paulding.
The Board of Selectmen also supports this. It seems to be a consistent usage. There is a restaurant in this zone right now. It's been grandfathered with a variance from years ago. However, this seemed to be appropriate use of that area, and the board has supported it.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, call for a vote. This again requires a unanimous vote, otherwise it'll be counted. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to change the zoning district and zoning map designation of a parcel shown on assessors records and map 56 as lot 61B 2419 State Road containing 27.37 acres from R-25 medium lot residential to AC arterial commercial. Said lot 61B is bounded east and west by routes 3A and 3, north and south by White Cliffs Golf Course and the Plymouth-Bourne Town Line, and is subject to an easement of Com Electric Company for Manomet-Sagamore Electric Line along and through the entire length of the parcel. Said lot 61B abuts a 4.01 acre parcel in Bourne in the same ownership zone business district B-2 or take any other action relative thereto. I have no motion. Hearing no motion, I declare no action. Article 14, to see what action the town will take to amend the zoning map and bylaw by changing the zoning designation of Lot 41B on Assessor's Map 27, owned by the inhabitants of the town of Plymouth, by deed recorded at Plymouth Deeds, Book 3589, page 195, from 4-20MF to NC, Neighborhood Commercial, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Sanjanet moves that the town vote to amend the zoning map and bylaw by changing the zoning designation of Lot 41B on Assessor's Map 27, owned by the inhabitants of the town of Plymouth, by deed recorded at Plymouth Deeds, Book 3589, page 195, from R20MF to NC Neighborhood Commercial, in accordance with the final report and recommendations of the Planning Board. This motion requires a 2/3 majority. There's a map contained in your book along with a report, and we have no objection to discussing both this article and Article 15 at the same time, although following the vote on Article 14, we will read the article and the motion for Article 15. Mr. Sanjanet.
As the moderator explained, this article and Article 15 are the same piece of property. Mr. Carefoli has requested that this property be rezoned. This parcel of land is located at the Overy Street and South Street intersection. Due to the change in this intersection, the request was made to have it consistent with his property. The only other abutter is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and there is no requirement to notify the Commonwealth. This parcel is less than 9,000 square feet, which is too small for any structure to be built in any zone in the town.
Mr. Paulding.
The Board of Selectmen also supports this article. If you're familiar with the South Street, the South Street intersection, Overy Street intersection is being currently realigned. This is the parcel that's going to be between that new reconstruction and Carefoli's business there, and it will allow him to have a better access and egress. It could make traffic a little better. The board did a similar thing last year, not exactly the same thing, but something similar when the rest home was built across the street. There was an error in the surveying, and there was some land, a strip of land that was owned for municipal purposes, which we conveyed to, or changed the use rather, so that those people would have frontage on Overy Street. So this is essentially the opposite side of the street. It's allowing for the proper use of that parcel by the existing business that's there. There are no abutters that are negatively impacted by this, and so we're in support of it.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, call Mr. McSherry.
Yes, Steve McSherry, Precinct 5. Pursuant to discussing both 14 and 15 together, do we have an estimated price that this piece of property will sell for once it's rezoned?
Anyone care to respond? Mr. Sanjanet.
The price will be set by the Board of Selectmen after consultation with the town planner, the assessor, and the finance director.
Okay, so as of this date, there is no estimate as to the property's value?
That's correct.
And there's only one person that could possibly buy it?
Well, anyone can bid for it, but there is only one logical person that would bid for it.
All right. Has the town, may follow up, has the town had any discussions with this possible buyer as to what he'd be using it for?
They have discussed, Mr. Carefoli has presented a plan. He showed some parking areas and some green abutting areas, just to fill in with greenage to protect his property from the intersection.
Okay, if I might continue.
Sherry.
Well, do you expect to have access then onto Overy Street?
There would be access onto Overy Street. It was explained to the Finance Committee that this would be the entrance into his property. Because of the construction that's being done there, he will have to move his propane gas tank from the site it's currently located at.
I see.
McSherry.
Yes, how much is the reconstruction of the intersection costing the town?
Anyone care to respond? Leighton Peck, Director of Public Works.
It's part of a major project to go from Route 3 to Route 3A, and that is $1 million project. Includes intersection improvements, all new roadway, new sidewalks, and a set of lights at that particular location. I can't specifically put a price on that intersection itself.
Okay, thank you. I have a concern because I think this particular article is a microcosm of what happens in town on several occasions. And I remember when the property was first, the permit to change it from its present use, and allow the facility that goes in there. I live down there, down Long Pond Road. We use it a lot. They do a nice job there. However, the traffic situation there has been horrendous. It's helped cause the situation of having to reconstruct that particular street. Sometimes we come in and we say, let's build it, let's allow it to add to the tax base, and we get $10 and we end up spending $1,000 to fix the problem that the $10 created. And I think that's what's happened in this case. I know that other things just on the other side of the highway, when the county proposed some facilities, there was like another service station that was going to be asked to go in there. That was turned right down. So sometimes I think we look at things and, it depends on the different articles, but we don't have a major plan with this. So as it stands right now, the town owns it. I'd like to keep it that way, and I'm going to vote against both of them. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion? Mr. Babini? Michael Babini, Chair, Planning Board.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator. The Planning Board voted to support this article. It was presented to the Planning Board by the petitioner. He did, at the same time, present a plan to the board that showed what his plans were in the future. We reserved the right, and he agreed to bring the plan back to the Planning Board should he be successful in acquiring this land from the town. So we do have some protection in that regard. The board felt that because of the location of this parcel, it has absolutely no value to the town of Plymouth. It's locked, it's landlocked as far as abutting any additional land owned by the town, and therefore we felt the most likely use for this would be to sell it to the abutter. Makes a lot of sense. I think that Mr. Carafoli has told the board that he will, in fact, put some plantings in there, dress it up a little bit, and once again, we will have final control over what he does there. So I think it's a good opportunity for the town to get some revenue and actually help the petitioner by allowing him to have better circulation within the site. Thank you.
Mr. Sanguinet.
If I can add, all town departments were asked if they had any plan or intended use for this property, and they all declined. They showed no interest in it. Also, the DPW director and the town engineer feel this parcel would be a logical and beneficial addition to Mr. Carafoli's holdings. If I can also add, this intersection requires that a light be installed at that intersection when it's completed.
Further discussion on the motion? Lawrence Winokur, attorney for Charles Carafoli. If there are no objections from town meeting, we'd give permission for Mr. Winokur to speak. Proceed.
Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be very brief. I just wanted to point out, in addition to what you've heard, that the redesign of the intersection results in this new ingress and egress to his property directly in the location of his existing propane delivery tank. Therefore, he has to move it. He wants to move it to an area next to this particular strip of land, and his ultimate desire is to simply build some parking there for that use and perhaps improve that interior design. There is a bidding process. The minimum price will be set by the selectmen, and he and any others who may be interested could bid on it. The town engineer has indicated, as Mr. Sanguinet said, that there is no use for the town in the future for this lot, and we would request your consideration on both of these articles. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion? Mr. Parker.
George Parker, Precinct 11. It's always good to be at a town meeting that has two moderators at it. My question, does this property, because Mr. Carafoli obviously is the person who would best make use of it, does this have to go through the bidding process in order to be disposed of?
Mr. Sanguinet.
Yes, it does.
What would be the approximate cost of the whole process?
Anyone care to respond to that? Mr. Paulding?
We haven't set a price on the property yet, but we have some history in doing this. You may recall last year there was a parcel up off of Russell Mills Road that was abutted, that an abutter wanted to acquire. And what the town did was use through Mr. Daly's office, a square footage assessment that is consistent with what the property is assessed in the adjacent area. And that was, I think, the minimum bid that was set. So we have some good experience in dealing with this type of process.
My question was not on the value of the land, because it's not worth 50 cents to me. I hope it's worth $1 million to Mr. Carafoli. But my question was, what is the cost to the town for disposing of the piece of property?
If I can answer, Mr. Parker.
Sanjanet?
There is no direct cost to the town. The only cost would probably be in the advertising of the sale of this property.
That would be legal, all of that?
I believe so.
Well, I'm looking for a number, advertising it in the legal. We probably went through quite a few $1,000s worth of legal money on transferring the West Plymouth recreational land to the town. I want to know approximate cost of what the taxpayers are going to have to pay to dispose of this piece.
Michael Daly, Director of Finance.
A legal ad would be the only out-of-pocket. The the process we used last year for the closing costs placed the closing costs at the onus of the buyer. So there's no legal cost to speak of from our side.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion. Mr. Shirley.
I'd like to move the question.
Shirley moves previous question. Closed debate. It's not debatable. Requires a 2/3 vote. It's procedural. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Abstentions. The motion to close debate carries. We will now move to the main motion. This is a statutory 2/3 vote, and therefore, if it is not unanimous, it will be counted. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Abstentions. I'll call for the vote one more time. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Abstentions. Motion carries unanimously. Article 15, to see what action the town will take to authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell, transfer, exchange, lease, grant, easements over, or otherwise alienate or dispose of a certain parcel of land situated on Aubrey Street, shown as Lot 41B on Assessor's Map 27, containing 8,566 square feet, more or less, described in deed recorded at Plymouth Deeds, Book 3589, page 195, and to change the purpose for which said parcel is held so as to be held for sale or, as aforesaid, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Sanjanet moves the town vote to change the purpose for which Lot 41B on Assessor's Map 27 is held, so as to be held for sale or as hereinafter described, and that the town authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell, transfer, exchange, lease, grant, easements over, or otherwise alienate or dispose of a certain parcel of land situated on Aubrey Street, shown as Lot 41B, on Assessor's Map 27, containing 8,566 square feet, more or less, described in deed recorded at Plymouth Deeds, Book 3589, page 195, for such sum and under such other terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deems appropriate. This requires a 2/3 vote. We have a locus map contained in the package. Mr. Sanjanet.
As previously stated, this is the same piece of property that was mentioned in Article 14, and the Finance Committee was in full support of this article also.
I've been told that there is a small change in the motion from the Finance Committee, and that change would be that this is held so as to be held for sale or general municipal purposes. Mr. Paulding.
The Board of Selectmen also approved this.
Further discussion on this? Mr. Scheid.
Mr. Moderator, could we have clarification, please? This is Nancy Scheid, Precinct 4, on the change in the motion.
Anyone care to respond to the change in the original motion of the Finance Committee? Town Council Elizabeth Lane.
The words
or hereinafter described were used in the article in order to allow for a number of actions to take place. What was decided to be moved and by typographical error wasn't included in the motion was that the uses would be being held for sale or for general municipal, so that if the property were not sold, the current use of the property would be general municipal. So there's no substantive change, really. If you look at your article, you'd see that there was a little more generic term used than what we've just now used in the motion.
Further discussion on the motion? This requires a two-thirds vote. If it is not unanimous, it will be counted. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to amend the town bylaws, Article 14, Plymouth Historic District, to include an appeals process as provided for in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40C, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Sanguinet moves the town vote to amend the town bylaws, Article 14, Plymouth Historic District, to include an appeals process as provided for in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40C. The bylaw to read as follows. Section 14.5, Appeals. Any applicant aggrieved by determination of the Commission may, within 20 days after the filing of the notice with the town clerk, file a written request with the Commission for review by a person or persons of competence and experience in such matters designated by the Regional Planning Agency. The finding of the person or persons making such review shall be filed with the town clerk within 45 days after the request, and shall be binding on the applicant and the Commission unless further appeal is sought in the Superior Court, as provided in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40C, Section 12A. And you will find this in your booklet. Mr. Sanguinet.
This change is being requested to add the step to the appeals process when the Historical Commission has a decision. Currently, appeals must go directly to the state Superior Court. It has been found that this step is very time-consuming and costly to the town. The change would allow for the Old Colony Planning Council to be the first step in the appeals process. Adoption of this change would allow for quicker responses on all appeals, and the Finance Committee was in support of this article.
Mr. Balding.
You may recall there was some controversy last year regarding petitioners before the Historic District Commission having requests, and in some cases, some apparently minor requests. For instance, the type of material a window was going to be made out of. It was felt after the issue was brought before the Board of Selectmen that an alternative process, something short of having to go to the Superior Court over an issue like that, would be appropriate. And we requested the Historic District Commission to look into the establishment of an appeals process so that this could be addressed by petitioners, as well as to provide some savings to the town. And this is their solution to that, and the board is very supportive of this article.
This is a general bylaw and therefore requires a simple majority vote. Mr. Allen.
First of all, I'd like to recommend, by the way, Bruce Allen, Precinct 11. I'd like to commend Mr. Paulding for his power tie. He looks like a slim Rush Limbaugh up there. But my question, pardon? Believe it or not, I lost my my place getting carried away with being a clown. I got to get my place here. Yeah, okay. Yes, what I was going back to is the Old Colony Planning Council decision binding on the Historic District Commission, or would it be just a recommendation for any changes from their decisions?
Mr. Paulding.
You know, I hope my wife is recording this at home. Put on the VCR. All the good compliments I'm receiving today, I have to record this and play it again over and over and over. By the way, this is the Olympic tie. I purchased this down in Atlanta at the Olympic Experience. So it's a support of the Olympics. And it's also, I thought it would be about as outrageous as I could get on my last town meeting. The answer to the question, what was the question? The answer to the question is that there is the appeal process from the decision of the Old Colony Planning Council exists also, so that if either party was unsatisfied with the decision of the Old Colony Planning Council, then an appeal could be taken to Superior Court. But this was kind of like an option to offer an intermediary step. It's not an all or nothing kind of a proposition. That's why this was so favorably received by the board.
Further discussion on the motion? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Article 17. If there are no objections, I'm not going to read the warrant. I will read the motion. Mr. Sanjanet moves that the town vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of the town-owned property described herein, currently in the custody of the Board of Selectmen for general purposes, to the Board of Selectmen for the purposes of granting perpetual right and easement as described hereafter to Commonwealth Electric Company and NYNEX, their successors, and assigns as tenants in common, or any licensee from either of them hereinafter called the grantees, to locate, relocate, erect, construct, reconstruct, install, lay, dig up, operate, maintain, patrol, inspect, repair, replace, alter, change of the location of, extend or remove one or more lines for the transmission and or distribution of electricity for light, heat, and or power, and or one or more lines for the transmission and or distribution of intelligence by electricity of otherwise and all necessary and proper wires, cables, conduits, conductors, transformers, transformer enclosures, foundations, platforms, terminals, insulators, fittings, switches, poles, crossarms, guides, braces, anchors, supports, manholes, handholds, streetlight standards and fixtures, and other apparatus, equipment, and fixtures deemed necessary for the purposes specified above, under, above, along, upon, and over that certain parcel of town-owned land named, being shown as Lot 2-1 on a plan entitled Division of Property, Plan of Land in Plymouth, Mass., Plymouth County, owned by the inhabitants of Plymouth County, dated June 30, 1994, prepared by John W. Delano and Associates, Inc., recorded with the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds as Plan Number 645 of 1994 in Plan Book 37, page 154. And in one part of that where it says intelligence by electricity or otherwise, rather than of otherwise, we'll correct that typographical error. There is a map contained in the package. Mr. Sanjanet.
I'm glad I didn't have to read that. And I'm also glad that town meeting didn't object to the reading of both. This article was considered housekeeping by the Finance Committee. There is a need to authorize an easement to Com Electric and NYNEX to allow for electrical and telephone lines to be put into the new police station. The town has the final say as to where these easements will go, but generally it is placed in the most logical spot.
Mr. Paulding.
And the board also considers this housekeeping. We routinely grant easements for electrical service to our municipal buildings.
Further discussion. Mr. Pomeroli.
Just one question. How's this building going to be heated?
Someone care to respond? Someone care to respond to the question on how will this be heated? Repeat the question again, Mr. Pomeroli.
How is the building going to be heated?
How is the building going to be heated?
How are they going to heat the police station? With what form?
Anyone care to respond to that question? Mr. Pomeroli is asking, how will the building be heated?
It's not a big deal. How's it going to be heated, gas or electric? Then why don't we have an easement for the Commonwealth Gas Company on this?
Mr. Pomeroli, is that a question?
Yes, it is.
Your question is?
For the Commonwealth Electric and for NYNEX, but we don't have an easement for Commonwealth Gas to come across the property.
Okay. Anyone care to respond as to why that isn't contained in the motion? Would someone care to give a response? Mr. Paulding. Paulding?
I'm told that the answer is they didn't ask for it.
Further discussion on the motion? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Abstention, motion carries. Mr. Sanjanet moves we dissolve this Plymouth Special Town Meeting. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Abstention. This Plymouth Special Town Meeting is dissolved at 12:24 p.m. I now declare the Plymouth Annual Town Meeting opened. Article 1, to hear the reports of the several boards or officers and committees of the town thereon. Mr. Sanjanet moves that the town receive the reports of various town committees, boards, commissions, and departments and place them on file at the town clerk's office. Mr. Sanjanet.
Finance Committee accepted the reports submitted from the various committees. We would also like to express our appreciation to the citizens who volunteer to sit on these committees.
I've been told that there were some reports that were filed on time and are contained in the town report. There are other reports that have been late filed, and some were made available with your materials, and I know of at least one report that will be made available at Monday's evening session. Mr. Brian Alosi, Chair of the 375th Anniversary Committee, will present a report. Mr. Alosi.
Until Peter was here, taller than me. I'd like to start with a brief history of the town's 375th birthday party plans. When I was elected, a brief 10 months ago, my most pressing concern was to help increase the town's commercial tax base to ease the burden on the residential property owner. And I saw that basically there's two ways of doing this. It's kind of analogous to increasing your financial wherewithal. You can do it two ways that I know of. One is to increase your income, and the other way is to keep more of what you have. And I think it's the same way with dealing with trying to get a better commercial tax base here in town. There's two ways to do it. Promote new business to come into the community, which is a long-term operation, which involves nurturing and a lot of preparation. Or the second way is to help those businesses that are already here and have already made the financial commitment to grow and expand. And there are various businesses like that, of which one I think just jumps right out at you, which is the tourist industry. And it was a result of this interest in the tourist industry that I went to a meeting in July that was held down at the Plymouth Plantation, and there was about 10 or 12 people from what I call the professional group. This is like the Chamber of Commerce, Destination Plymouth, and groups like this that were talking about what the plans were for the 375th anniversary. And in typical fashion, when I go to a meeting like that, I just jumped right into it, and as a result of asking so many questions and getting involved with so many of the items that they were discussing, I ended up being chairman. And that was not my intention, but it was what I ended up being as opening up my big mouth, I guess. But in any case, I think we've really progressed very, very well since then. The second meeting that we had, we invited just about every organization that there was in town that was involved in either tourism or in a professional capacity, such as Chamber of Commerce, Destination Plymouth, and whatnot. And after the meeting, it was interesting because I had several people that came up to me and said that this was the first time that they had seen all the groups together working for one particular goal. And I think that was perhaps a harbinger of things to come, because we've been working together for this goal ever since. And I think that hopefully over the years, the ripple effect will go on for years after, because now that the precedent is set that these organizations are working together, it really is good. Because as a classic example, back in mid-August, there was some details that we had to work out with a couple of parades. The Mayflower Society was going to be running a parade on July 23rd for the historic regiments, and then also the Veterans Council was also going to be running a parade on August 6th, which basically close together, within 2.5 weeks of each other, 3 weeks, and there was going to be overlapping, and it was general concern. So there was a meeting held where the Veterans Council met with representatives of the Mayflower Society, and the compromise that was made was the July 23rd parade is going to be made up of regiments that go from World War I till the beginning of time, and then the August 6th parade was going to be composed of World War II up to the modern day, because it's going to commemorate the end of World War II. So those are the kind of things that have been worked out, and it's been going along well ever since. Doesn't mean that we haven't had our bumps, because we've had our bumps, and fortunately we've been able to work things out, but because of the type of relationships that we've had. The 375th is broken down into three groups. We have the steering committee, which is made up of roughly 30 individuals representing all the different groups in town. They are the ones that have organized all the events that are being held. The second group that we have is the Selectmen Advisory Group. The Selectmen Advisory Group is chaired by Jeff Metcalf, who is also the vice chairman of the 375th. And the charge of the Selectmen Advisory Group is to involve the 5 village centers in the 375th. That's the grassroots organization. That's where we're going to try to get the village centers involved with parades, having floats, being involved with like the road race that we have on September 9th, all these types of things to get that enthusiasm going and to get the village centers working with each other. Because right now, like I'm in West Plymouth, and I know that West Plymouth doesn't really seem to have a feel for what's happening in South Plymouth and whatnot. So it'd be good to get these groups together. So that's the charge of the Selectmen Advisory Group. The last group is the Finance Committee. And one thing I'd like to note of particular, I think that is really of particular interest to you, is that the 375th is not asking or is using any town funds. And we've done this because we think that it's an opportunity for us to prove that things can be done without having to have the taxpayer pick up the bill. The only town funds, if you want to call it that will be utilized are funds that come from the Visitor Services Board, and those are from the motel taxes. Where the 375th Steering Committee and the Finance Committee has made a decision that we will not go after a big piece of the Visitor Services money, as opposed to letting some of the other groups, like the July 4th group, go after it for safety purposes and things like that. So we're trying to not compete with any of the existing organizations of what they're doing. The cost of the 375th will be about $250,000 by the time we're done to run it. We started out at $75,000 that we thought was going to have to be raised privately, from the citizens and businesses here in Plymouth. It has ended up being $100,000. One of the interesting things is that the goal has gone up steadily, and we've got I think some excellent people involved. The overall chairman for the fundraising effort is John Talcott, who was also the chairman of the 350th. So he had a lot of information and background to lend to us. We've got town moderator Steve Trifoletti, who is heading up the Projects and Corporation Group. And then we've got the 375th Club, which is chaired by Jeff Metcalf. And the 375th Club is, as it says, $375 that is donated by smaller businesses, individuals, and whatnot. And they get one of our flags, and they also are going to get recognition, as will the project and salespeople. But out of the $100,000 that we have as our goal, I'm happy to report that as of today, we have $80,000 raised either with donations or pledges to this date. So we've got another $20,000 to go. So I can't say enough on how well they've done. We've got, it's amazing how some of the people have also added their expertise, like to the fundraising group, because that is such a, that either shows where you make it or you don't. And we have people like George Anzoni from the Plymouth and Brockton Street Railway, Phyllis Hughes from the MPG, Barbara Barbalis from the Rockland Trust, Enzo Monti, a retired educator, also a town meeting member here, Jack Dunbar from Pepsi-Cola, and I could go on and on and on and on for the people that have gotten involved. The one of the things I would like to point out too is our flag here. Our flag is not patriotic colors. The purpose of the 375th is to be festive. So that's why when Mark Johnson designed this flag, he made it as a festive type thing so that we feel that it's more of a birthday party as opposed to something that's patriotic. We do have a bunting committee that is chaired by a couple of people who will be getting the bunting red, white, and blue around buildings and things like that. But the flag that we have here, we've got, this is the vertical flag, we have a horizontal flag, and we also have banners which people can use for their homes. They're smaller. Those are the same type of banners that they have pumpkins at Halloween time or Valentine hearts, around February and whatnot. But they will have a smaller flag that'll be for sale. But the colors that we have at the top there, that designates the brown for the earth, the green for the ocean, and the blue for the sky. And then we've tried to just make it like a fiesta. So we have that. We also have a banner that will be stretched across Main Street. It'll be in time for our April 22nd reception that we're going to be having at the Mayflower Society. That's going to be at Shirley Square, where a lot of people here have been around in town for a long time, know that that was the traditional location for the banner. And we had to come up with, once again, innovative ideas. We had to be resourceful for trying to get funding for the 375th so that businesses and people would feel a part of it as opposed to just giving a donation. You can get people to get involved with something if they feel as though they have a project. So we came up with a program called the Merchant Adventurer. And I had found out about this way back in July. So it was casually mentioned to me from somebody, I think it was either from the Plantation or maybe it was the Antiquarian Society. But the Merchant Adventurer, I just related to because it sounded like something that nowadays would be maybe similar to an investor and that type of thing. And what happened back in the 1620 days, the Pilgrims wanted to come to the United States, for religious freedom and whatnot, but they didn't have the financial wherewithal. The Merchant Adventurer was the investor who financed the trip. And the Merchant Adventurer got his return by having his principal returned with interest, of course. Then it was favorable treaties and business arrangements and things along that line. So the Merchant Adventurer was a thing that we picked up on, and every month we're going to be identifying a different Merchant Adventurer in here in town, and we're going to have a banner similar to this. Here we go. And it's going to have, the top banner is going to be stationary, and then at the bottom we're going to have a different Merchant Adventurer for each month, like Rogers and Gray Insurance, for example, is going to be doing July. The Squirrel Run Country Club is going to be doing September, and the Plymouth Colony Winery. So we already have several of the months already pledged as far as being participants. They're also going to have a second banner, Pepsi-Cola. Jack Dunbar, I guess, with Pepsi-Cola and Ocean Spray, that word Ocean Spray. Hopefully we'll be able to get them more involved with our community again. They are going to be putting up a banner at the junction of Route 3A and 44. It's going to be up and down, but we're going to have a second banner there. So we're getting some participation. I would like to just briefly review some of the events that we have scheduled. This is our four-color brochure, which came out. We had 15,000 of these printed. They're already used up. We're going into the second printing already. These are going out with hotels, motels, literature. It's going out with Destination Plymouth, Plymouth Chamber of Commerce, Plymouth County Development Council, and whatnot. It lists all the events. The second printing is going to have not only the events we have, but the new events that have just been signed up. But some of the things I'd like to mention is the kickoff is going to be on April 22nd. It's going to be a reception for the Lord Mayor of Plymouth, England, Walter Ainsworth. That is going to be an $18 a person ticket. We have a couple of representatives from the 375th Committee out in the foyer. They would be more than happy to sell you some tickets. That is going to be limited to 400 people. We're up already over 300 tickets sold. So we've got about 100 left, and with about 3.5 weeks to go. So that should be a fine night, because not only are we going to have the Mayflower Society open, we're also going to have Spooner House and the Whitfield House. I think Brian Whitfield's here too. He's going to be opening up his building. The next event will be May 12th. And like, the best laid plans, you always have some things that change and whatnot. And here it's listed as May 19th, which is the original date, but the Veterans Council is going to have a May 12th concert free to the public at Memorial Hall, commemorating the end of World War II. Then we're going to have on July 4th, the 4th of July parade, which has been very aptly run by Bruce Aarons and Kenny Tavares over the years. They are going to be picking up the theme of Coming to America for the 375th theme. And then July is an active month, and it's really going to be I think it's going to be an excellent month. On the 14th of July, Friday night, we're going to have the Gay Head Pageant, which is the first time it's been held off of the islands by the Wampanoag Native American tribe. And then on the July 15th, it says Wampanoag music here, but actually it's going to be the Indian River Singers. We're going to have them. And then we're going to have a concert at night. So that's going to be on the 15th. Then on July 22nd, 23rd, we have just a number of things happening. On the 21st and 22nd, we have an actual Indian dugout canoe that's going to be demonstrated on how to go about doing that if you want to build them for yourself. Then on the 22nd, we're going to have a Native American clam bake, which will be done by Joan Tavares, who is a native Wampanoag, and she will be having that down at Nelson Field. There's going to be 5 sittings. Then on the 23rd, which I think is going to be a super day, at 12:15 Sunday, we're going to have the Historic Regiments Parade, which will start at the Forefathers Monument, meander its way down through the center of town, then end up at Plymouth Rock in enough time for 1:15, where we will have the reenactment of the first landing of the Pilgrims. The shallop will come in from the Mayflower into onto the Plymouth Rock, and the tide is set so that you can get a feel for why Plymouth Rock was used at the time, because the tide will be high tide, and then you'll know why the Pilgrims landed where they did, because they didn't want to get their feet wet. So then after that, at about 2:30, Supreme Court Justice David Souter is going to be inducting 102 new citizens into the United States. And it's amazing. I've been getting a lot of phone calls from people right here in the greater Plymouth area, people who want to be involved with that. And the Immigration and Naturalization Service is coming up with names for us, but we're going to try to get as many local people as possible. So that will happen all on the 23rd. Then on August 6th, the Veterans Group will be having a commemorative parade, which will start in North Plymouth and end up in the center of town for the end of World War II. Then on September 9th and 10th, we have race weekend. The North Plymouth Neighborhood Watch will be running 3 races in one on the 9th of September. The first race will be a 5-meter, which will start at North Plymouth and end at Plymouth Rock. There will be a 5K, okay, something, well close to it, 5K. 10K coming in from West Plymouth, 10K from West Plymouth. And then for you hardy souls, if you want to do it, from South Plymouth, we're going to have a marathon that's 13 miles. And they're all going to converge, hopefully, with the winners coming in at about the same time at Plymouth Rock. So that's kind of exciting. And then the next day, we have the cycle race. Then we have other events that are going to be held. But I just want to show you the amount of details that have gone into this. And I must say that Mike Gallerani has been a tremendous amount of help putting this together. Like we have strategic plans right here that have all been compiled. We have a strategic plan for each and every event. And then if you want to see something that's really complicated, here's our flow chart for each and every event on what we need. You know, if you need portable bathrooms, chairs, sound system, and whatnot. So as you can see right here, each one of these is one of the events. I just highlighted the major events. There's a lot of smaller events that are happening because, you just have to be organized on this. So we have all that being done also. Another thing I'd like to mention that is outside in the foyer on that table that is manned by 2 of our representatives is the Pilgrim Award. We are identifying 10 people who have done outstanding volunteer work here in town. And we're looking for, the type of people that deliver food for Meals on Wheels, or maybe have been a den leader and a YMCA type person. Those are the kind of people that we're looking for too, that really wouldn't get normally recognized. And we're trying to look for the little guy and give them the much-needed recognition. We do have several new events that we've also have brought in. On June 10th, we've got a kayak race that's coming from Provincetown coming in to Plymouth. And then on July 28th, 29th, and 30th, there's going to be an intercultural powwow, which will be held at PCIS. And then on November 25th, we're going to have we're calling it our gala finale. This is going to be the end of the 375th major events, and at that time, we're going to be recognizing like all the 10 Pilgrim Award winners and a lot of the people that have gotten involved. It's going to be a black tie type gala. Some of the things we've got available, I've already mentioned the four-color brochure. We are going to be producing more bumper stickers. We've already run out of them. The one thing I'd like to mention to people, if you take them, please put them on your cars. I know a lot of people are taking them and they're using them as souvenirs, but please put them on your cars because that's what it's intended for. We also have welcome stickers that are being sent to businesses that participate as sponsors, and they will be put on doors and windows and whatnot to welcome people for the 375th. We have our flag, which I mentioned. We have our banners. We have our lapel pins. I already gave mine away, but you've seen Senator Murray had one. Peter Paulding had one. Those are available from Destination Plymouth. We also have coins at the local that can be purchased at local banks. And you have to, I put a piece of cotton in here because it was rattling around. It was driving me crazy. So, but right here we have a coin, you know, so a commemorative coin, which is available at all the different banks. Those are 6 1/4, I believe. No, 6 1/4. And there's also, you just look at, we've got a brochure. Just look at the counters. All the banks have them. They all have them. Another thing that I wanted to mention is we have these stickers. These stickers were developed for the motel industry, and they're sending these out. We're using them on lapels and whatnot, but these are going out on all motel bills, hotel bills, and whatnot. Anything that's going out, whether it be national or international. Speaking of that, Destination Plymouth raised about $10,000 for making us able to hire Sheila Gelsthorpe, who is the person who promoted First Night in Boston. And Sheila Gelsthorpe is going to be doing all of our international and national promotion. She's been on board now for about 2 weeks, and things are getting rolling on that. Great Britain is really getting promoted big time for visitors to come here. And Destination Plymouth, like I said, raised $10,000 for that. The Gelsthorpe name you may sound familiar to some of you. Ed Gelsthorpe was the president of Ocean Spray years and years ago. I guess his name was Cranapple Ed or nickname whatnot, but he was, this is a relation to him. Also, we have hired Doris Johnson, who's a local PR firm, to do all of our local PR. We have metal signs. You've probably seen them around town. There's one in front of the courthouse. There's one in North Plymouth. There's one in Cedarville. There's one down at the waterfront. There's a couple in West Plymouth. We have those white signs, and Wendy Longo, who's here, who's also a town meeting member, was very, very active in getting those together for us. We're going to have a couple of PR pieces. On April 20th, the Old Colony Memorial is going to produce a 56-page supplement, which will come out in the OCM just before the April 22nd reception at the Mayflower Society House. That will list all the new events as well as all the supporters and a lot of information about the 375th and what's going on. Then in July, the Plymouth Economic Development Office is going to be producing an American Business Directory, which is going to cover the business community here in Plymouth, what it was from 1620 to now, then where we are now, and then perhaps where we're going to be in the future, right up to the 400th anniversary of the town. But I'm just going to wrap this up now. Some of the positive results to date, okay? If a lot of you people haven't noticed, I think I'm a positive type person, and I try to look at the different things that are happening, all right, that I think are good for this community and that are going to be, just produce positive results in the future. For one, I think that there's a new spirit of cooperation between the various tourist and professional groups. What's interesting to me is that we've got people from the industrial park working with retailers. We've got professional people working with people in the tourist trade. And that's good because you get this feel that we are working for the same goal, like the rising tide lifts all boats. That's what I look at. An exciting thing that new ideas are coming up. We have had a presentation made to us that there's a potential of the 375th plugging into the internet, which is the information superhighway, and there would be the potential of possibly reaching 30 million terminals, which is a lot of terminals, worldwide. And if we are able to start something like this for the 375th, then maybe we can work this out for the town of Plymouth. Wouldn't that be great in the future? So there's a lot of new ideas and innovative things coming up. We are definitely getting more involvement from the private citizens in our town for a common event, working all together for one goal. And the 375th has also resulted in a higher recognition of our historical heritage and the impact of tourism on our finances and economic vitality here in Plymouth. There's a lot of correlation there. Businesses, like I said, are all working together, which to me is a high point to see different groups working together, whereas we had all these little splinter groups, and now we've got people, instead of operating as different fingers and hands, we're all working together. In conclusion, just 2 points. We have, this is my second conclusion. Right. And this is just what I want to leave you with, okay? And this, because I think this is where it's all at. And I mean this. We have some real substantial natural resources here in Plymouth. But I think that as a result of my contacts here with the 375th, I must say that the most outstanding natural resource that we have here is our citizens. Because they have been superb in their energy, their creativeness, and most importantly, performance to make our 375th anniversary celebration that is going to be very, very successful. And and like I said, we have had our bumps, and I'm sure we're going to have some bumps, but we're just going to somehow overcome it and make it happen. I would also be remiss if I did not congratulate the business and the professional community here in our community. Without their financial support and active leadership in committees, and their in-kind donations, whether it be supplying refreshments or whatnot, and things along that line, the 375th, with the time constraints that we had, would have only been a dream, would have never been possible. I think that when we made the request for help, the business community, the professional community were the first ones to stand up at the base and be counted. So with that, I'm looking forward to a good 375th. The people that are involved have been fantastic, and we're looking forward to, God willing, that we have good weather. We don't have to worry too much about rain and whatnot, because a lot of things in July, I hope. And with that, if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer after the meeting, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Alosi. Mrs. Manfredi, he really gave you a run. Any other reports to come before the town meeting at this time? If not, we'll vote on the motion to receive the reports of the various town committees. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Abstentions, motion carries. Article 2, to see what action the town will take under the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, regarding the establishment and annual reauthorization of revolving funds. This motion will be taken in part. The first part is as follows. Mr. Sanjanet moves the town vote to continue the following revolving funds for fiscal 1996, as established under Article 19 of the April 6, 1991 special town meeting. A, the Manomet Village Parking Revenue Revolving Fund. B, the Cedarville Village Parking Revenue Revolving Fund. C, the West Plymouth Village Parking Revenue Revolving Fund. D, the North Plymouth Village Parking Revenue Revolving Fund. E, the Plymouth Center Village Parking Revenue Revolving Fund. 1, these 5 funds shall be for the programs and purposes identified in the Section 305.12 of the Plymouth zoning bylaw. 2, the departmental receipts credited to these 5 funds shall be those identified in Section 305.12 of the Plymouth zoning bylaw. Said departmental receipts shall be deposited to the appropriate revolving fund relative to the village center for which the funds have been collected. 3, the Board of Selectmen shall be empowered with the authorization to make expenditures from the funds so established. 4, the limit of expenditures authorized for fiscal year 1996 shall not exceed $1 from any parking fund so established. And further, Mr. Sanjanet moves the town vote to continue the Recreation Revenue Revolving Fund for fiscal 1996 as established under Article 3 of the April 4, 1992 annual town meeting. 1, this fund shall be for recreational programs and purposes for Plymouth residents and their children. 2, the departmental receipts credited to this fund shall be those identified as relating to recreational programs. 3, the recreation director shall be empowered with the authorization to make expenditures from the fund. 4, the limit of expenditure authorized for fiscal year 1996 shall not exceed $50,000. And further, Mr. Sanjanet moves the town vote to continue the Cable Services Revenue Revolving Fund for fiscal year 1996 as established under Article 3 of the April 3, 1993 annual town meeting. 1, this fund shall be for cable-related programs and purposes for Plymouth residents. 2, the departmental receipts credited to this fund shall be those identified as arising from cable-related franchise fees. 3, the town manager shall be empowered with the authorization to make expenditures from the fund. 4, the limit of expenditure authorized for fiscal 1996 shall not exceed $1. And further, Mr. Sanjanet moves that the town vote to continue the Vocational Technical Studies Program Revolving Fund. 1, this fund shall be for vocational technical studies programs and purposes related to A, automotive, B, CAD/CAM, C, carpentry, D, childcare, E, computer science, F, cosmetology, G, culinary arts, H, distributive education, I, electrical, J, electronics, K, graphic arts, L, metals welding, and M, plumbing. 2, the Plymouth School Committee and/or the superintendent of schools shall be empowered to make expenditures from said fund. 3, the departmental receipts credited to this fund shall be those identified as arising from the vocational educational studies program enumerated above. 4, the limit of expenditures for fiscal 1996 shall not exceed $150,000. Mr. Sanjanet.
All the existing revolving funds will continue unchanged as presented to the Finance Committee. The village parking funds and the cable revenue fund are still capped at $1. The recreation fund is capped at $50,000. The only change that you will see is the addition of the cosmetology program. This is an addition to the vocational technical studies, and will be added to the VocTech Studies Fund. If this is not added, any revenues received by this program will go into the general fund, hence taxing the school budget to continually purchase supplies. Finance Committee was supported these.
This is the first half of the motion. Mr. Paulding.
First, I'd like to say to Norman Vincent Alosi, you show a little enthusiasm when you're up here, Brian. The board has voted to support this article.
Further discussion on this portion of the motion? Continuing on, Mr. Sanjanet moves the town vote to establish the Plymouth Beach Revolving Fund. 1, this fund shall be for repair and maintenance of Plymouth Beach. 2, the departmental receipts credited to this fund shall be those identified as all non-resident parking receipts at Plymouth Beach, in addition to 50% of Plymouth Long Beach 4x4 sticker fees. 3, the town manager shall be empowered with the authorization to make expenditures from the fund. 4, the limit of expenditure authorized for fiscal year 1996 shall not exceed $30,000. And further, Mr. Sanjanet moves the town vote to establish the Cemetery Repair and Beautification Revolving Fund. 1, this fund shall be for repair and beautification of cemetery properties in Plymouth. 2, the departmental receipts credited to this fund shall be those identified as those arising from foundation revenue. 3, the Director of Public Works shall be empowered with the authorization to make expenditures from the fund. 4, the limit of expenditure authorized for fiscal year 1996 shall not exceed $3,600. Mr. Sanjanet.
The Cemetery Repair Fund is being requested so that monies available to have monies available to the Cemetery Division for quick and unforeseen repairs. The second fund is for as similar to the Cemetery Fund is being requested for the unforeseen repairs that occur on the beach. Monies are available within this budget for these expenditures. However, when a major storm comes up the coast, the maintenance items are eaten up. The Finance Committee had no objections to the establishment nor the levels of the caps in these funds. These funds were deemed important since it would reduce the transferring from the Finance Committee's reserve fund and place less strain on the budgets of these departments.
Mr. Paulding?
And for those same reasons, the board has also voted to support these articles.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Abstention? Motion carries. This town meeting stands in recess for 1 hour.
You've been watching live coverage of the annual town meeting for Plymouth. During the meeting, of course, I'll give you a quick summation here. During the meeting, we did complete all of the articles for the special town meeting. I'll give the wrap-up of the entire morning for you. Article 1, no action, no motion. Article 2, and I should mention, these are articles within the special town meeting. Article 2, motion carried. Article 3, motion carried. Article 4, motion carried. Article 5, motion carried. Article 6, no motion, no action. Article 7, motion carried. Article 8, motion carried. Article 9, motion carried. Article 10, no motion, no action. Article 11, motion carried. Article 12, motion carried. Article 13, no motion, no action. Article 14, motion carried. Article 15, motion carried. Article 16, motion carried. And Article 7, motion carried. Those are the, Article 17, motion carried. Those are the articles for the special town meeting, and then we managed to handle the first two articles for the annual town meeting. Both carried. Article 1 and 2, motion carried. You've been watching live coverage of the annual town meeting for Plymouth on Adelphia Channel 18. My name is Ted McGuire. I want to take this second to thank those helping out today. On my left, engineer Michael Renz for Adelphia Cable, and then two volunteers on camera today, Stephen Moreau and Eric Bratloff. For audio, we have Kerry Ashforth and James Donovan. We have a brief message from the Plymouth Advisory Board, Plymouth Cable Advisory Board, I should say, from the chairman of the Cable Advisory Board, David Regan.
Good evening, Plymouth residents. The Cable Advisory Committee is holding its final public hearing on the cable renewal license. It's Thursday, April 13th at the Plymouth Public Library at 7:30 p.m. All are urged to attend. Please attend. It's 7:30 p.m., April 13th at the library. Plenty of parking. We look forward to seeing you there.
Again, this is the scene here live from Plymouth North High School in the auditorium here, covering live the annual town meeting for Plymouth, now standing at lunch recess for approximately 1 hour. When the town meeting convenes, of course, our coverage will convene, and now we will go to lunch ourselves. We'll see you in about an hour. Thanks.
At request of town meeting members, please take your seats following the lunch recess. This time, we'd like to thank Bruce Lassard and his staff for making available the lunch that's provided today in the cafeteria at Plymouth North High School. Also, at this time, we'd like to thank volunteers who are assisting the Adelphia Cable staff, volunteers Stephen Moreau and Eric Bratloff, as well as the Adelphia Cable staff that is here, Ted McGuire and Mike Renz. This time, I'd like to ask town meeting members to come in and be seated quietly. I'd like to call upon Town Manager William Griffin to give his message on the budget. Mr. Griffin. We have the lights shut down, please. If you could take your seats quietly. Mr. Griffin, if you'd like to begin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Knowing how much you enjoy the details of municipal finance, I will be very brief in my comments. But I did want to, as you begin the finance part of town meeting, to have a feel for some of the assumptions that have been made as the budgets and all the articles, capital plan, et cetera, have been viewed this year. We, in the fall of each year, must make assumptions of revenues, and we have done so, not only assumptions, but implicit in that are policies relating to the tax levy. What I've put up on the screen, I hope you can all see most of it, are the basic assumptions we have made this year on finances. The first and most important one is that there's a policy of the Board of Selectmen, and it was carried through the allocation formula, that there would be no use of the 2.5% allowance. No use of that allowance. And that equates to approximately $1.5 million. Obviously, a very large sum of revenue, and one that has not been factored in any way to the budgets that you're going to be acting upon. The next assumption, we do, however, when discussing the tax levy, project new growth. Taxes that we should be having come in for the first time due to construction. We have estimated $950,000. That's, I believe, a conservative number. There was mentioned before that we often come back in the fall and do some other matters relating to the budget, and that's one number we will be tracking. Hopefully we are on the low side, and thus we might be able to do some other things as the year goes on. We have a very special factor this year, and that was what's called the teacher deferral allowance of $1.2 million. As you may recall, last fiscal year, we were fortunate to be able to pay off that deferral. It was a deficit that was on our books. Because that was paid off last year, that makes those funds available this year to support budgets. And in fact, we were able to do that, and that made life certainly easier than it would have been if that money was not available. Now, we have assumed that ed reform monies of $1.8 million will be coming. That's based upon the governor's budget, and in every discussion we've heard and read, that portion of state aid appears to be fairly certain. However, in the fall, despite some discussion of available monies in other state aid lines, we held the line and said, until we see it, we will not believe it. And thus, we assume no additional state aid beyond the ed reform monies. So this budget's been built with the assumption that state aid will remain constant. And the more we hear and the more we read, that appears to be, we'll be lucky if we are able to assume that position. And finally, the last sum, we do have a variety of miscellaneous revenues, local receipts, available funds of $650,000. So those are the revenue sources of the town. Again, the budget's been built with no use of the 2.5%. As you know, I think you know, we have an allocation formula that we use between the general government and the school department, and as it's worked out this year, the total new funds for town government, general government, is $1,375,000. The total new monies for the school budget is $3,282,000. $1.8 million of that is that ed reform money that you saw on the screen before. So that's what was available to support the budgets for the coming year, again, with no use of the levy of the 2.5% allowance. What that did to budgets, in terms of the general government budget, the budget that the Finance Committee will move is $35,151,000. That's different than what the Board of Selectmen will be moving. And what that results in is still a balance of $683,000. If the Finance Committee version of the budget gets approved, as they've asked, there would still be $683,000 available on the town side of the budget below the allocation. And again, still with no use of the 2.5 allowance. And certainly, we have not settled any collective bargaining agreements for the next year, and that's certainly one of the major uses for that sum of money as we would bring before you at some time in the future. The board's version of the budget, again, is somewhat less. There are some expansion requests that the Finance Committee has voted on that the board does not support at this time, and the board's version of budget is $771,000 below its maximum. On the school side, the number I put up here is not the one that appeared in your book, but the one that appeared on a blue sheet based upon an amendment to the budget. When we first prepared the budgets, the revenue projections for this year, we assumed a certain amount of state aid for schools. That did not come through the way we thought, and thus the budget had to be reduced. Both the Finance Committee and the School Committee budget right now of $49.4 million is based upon that